No way.
I need you frightened. I need you hopeless.
Welcome back to the chaos. This is the Reflections of Horror podcast. We are a horror movie podcast for the girls, gays, and non-binary baes, and we are finally fucking back for season 2. We've missed you guys. I'm Lisa.
I'm Kale. And for this season, we're kind of doing a little bit of a shift of gears here. In our first season, we did a lot of movies by women, kind of getting into some more obscure, do you call movies titles? You know?
Yeah.
Some more obscure films and stuff. But this season, we're diving into franchises, and we're going to be starting with... timely for us, this time of recording, but we're going to be starting with a 28 days, weeks, years later franchise. So yeah, this is the 28 days later episode.
Yeah, back to 2002.
2002,
Yeah.
I know, which
What a
was
time.
a long time ago
Yeah.
now. And I love it, because I love early 2000s kind of film and vibes and stuff. It's like the nostalgia is powerful.
Yeah, we're all like foaming at the mouth for nostalgia right now. So.
Yeah, very much the time of nostalgia culture.
Yes.
All kinds of stuff from from Y2K era is coming back in a really not fun way, but it's fine. But yeah, this year we got the 28 years later, which has been many, many years in the making.
Yes.
And, but yeah, we're going to start with 28 Days, which I think I'm really excited about because it's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah.
I think it sets the scene for, like, the modern zombie genre. And, you know, we can get into a little bit of, like, whether or not these are zombies or not. But I think, like, even the creators kind of feel like that it's fine to call them zombies.
Oh, yeah. I meant to give that disclaimer. Don't fucking come for us with the, they're not zombies. They're rage-infected. They're zombies, okay?
Zombies. It's the same general idea.
Yeah, but man, there is a group of fans that will come at you for calling them zombies, which is so silly because if they're not zombies, what subgenre do they go in?
Yeah, exactly.
You're being silly.
You are being silly. You're being pedantic, actually, which is a great word.
Yeah. And then with this, when you think of zombies, is this your go-to movie? When I think zombie genre, it's this franchise for me. And then Train to Busan is a secondary.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, I'd say so. I think of it as like one of the keystones in it because it just inspired so many, and it was inspired by a lot of other things like that came before it too. But I think it's just like a good touchstone.
Yeah, I think obviously George A. Romero is like the father of the zombie genre.
Yeah.
I might get hung for this. I have not seen.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I think I've seen one of them that was made in like the 2000s, which I don't even know if it was his movie or if it was just a remake, but sorry. So for me, this is my zombie franchise.
Yeah, this is my zombie franchise too. And, you know, obviously Walking Dead, but that's a series, so it doesn't really count as like film, but I think like just like culturally, I think it's pretty significant because I was there when it was coming out weekly and everybody was talking about it, like in much like Game of Thrones style. And yeah, I was a big fan. It was all about the zombies in like the 2010s.
I was late to the zombies. I've only just recently binged Walking Dead from start to finish in like the last couple of years. So.
Yeah. Have you watched the spin-offs?
So that's why I did it, because I was like, well, there's like 900 spin-offs. I tried, but by the end of The Walking Dead, you're just so like
burnt out. Yeah, it's rough, but that's why we like movies too, because they know when to end and they know when to stop sometimes.
Yes. So let me dive into the log line in case we have listeners who I don't even know where you would reside other than under a rock if you don't know what this is about. But so the log line I pulled from IMDb says, 4 weeks after a mysterious, incurable virus spreads throughout the United Kingdom, a handful of survivors tried to find sanctuary.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's short, sweet,
normally
to the point.
Normally I pull it off of Google, and I think AI has just fucking ruined everything. Obviously, the log line, which a log line is supposed to be like a sentence, like 10 words max, I
Yeah.
think. It was like a full fucking paragraph just summarizing the whole movie. And I was like, well, this isn't a log line, so not going to use this one.
So when I was doing my own Google searches and stuff just to get on the little why Google sucks now track, is that, you know, it has suggested searches and stuff,
yes.
like when it comes down.
Yep.
And I was Googling like Cillian Murphy and stuff, and there was one suggested search, why wasn't Cillian Murphy in 28 Weeks Later? And I clicked on that. And then the description was just AI generated, and it was just Cillian Murphy was not in the second film because he wasn't in it. And I was like, wow, cool. You don't say.
Thanks for that.
Oh, it's making us dumber.
Oh, God. All right.
So great.
Let's dive into this.
Yeah, let's go.
So we open up with this news footage, basically, of just, like, mass fucking chaos. Like, it looks like protests in the streets, people fighting cops, whatever, and then, like, it's a slow pan out, and then we see it's, like, a wall of TVs, and a chimp is, like, just pinned down watching these TVs.
Yeah. Were they trying to brainwash the chimp? Were they trying to instill it with rage by making it watch all that stuff?
I believe so.
Interesting. I
And
didn't think that hard about that, actually.
it was interesting in the director's commentary. Apparently, they went back and forth about, should we use, like, real footage? They ultimately landed on no, which I think that's a proper decision. So that all of that footage they made and then, like, put into the TVs. So I think that's, and another fun fact, there is apparently only 2 working groups of chimps in the industry. One is in LA and one is in Stuttgart, Germany. So that's a German chimp.
Okay, very cool. Fun fact, didn't know. It's a German chimp. That's funny. So was the chimp that was lying on the table, was that a real chimp? The one that was, oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Because
Yep.
I was like, that's a really good animatronic.
No, a well-trained chimp from the Stuttgart working chimps group.
Yeah.
And then we realize that we're at the Cambridge Primate Research Center, and then we just kind of get right into the action of these masked people coming in, and then we quickly realize they're breaking in to try to break the chimps out. So it's some sort of animal rights activists. We would
Animal
assume.
activists.
Yeah.
Which was definitely, like, for the time, I think you hear a lot about them in the news and stuff.
Yeah.
So I just like to think about, like, how, like, for its time, how timely this one was.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go and there's a doctor in the lab, the chimp lab.
It's the way the doctor's just standing there with, like, a cup of coffee. Like, it's as if he had just left to grab his coffee, comes back, and there are now, like, masked people in his lab trying to break his chimps out. And he's like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
like, I'm trying, and he basically is like, do not do this.
Yeah.
They're infected with the rage virus.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to get really bad. And I will say, this is kind of the start of this, like, super grainy, gritty way of shooting this film. Because, like, to me, this opening sequence of them being in there, like, I'm partially like, what's happening? Like, it's not very clear at times.
It's not super, like, I think that's to be said about the whole film. It's very punk, you know? It's very scrappy, very scratchy.
Yes.
And one of the first movies to be shot on digital, which they kind of did on purpose to kind of, like, maintain that, because it was just with, like, video cameras, to maintain that, like,
grittiness to
gritty, and the kind of like a sense of remove too, which kind of puts it into this weird kind of dreamlike situation, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, so the activists are not listening, of course, because they want to save the chimps.
Yes.
And they go, and one of them opens a chimp cage, and the chimp bum rushes out and attacks her. I thought it was interesting that the first victim was a woman. Just to point that out there, like, interesting, like, choice to have, like, the first scene of real violence that we have is against a woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chimp rips her apart. She gets infected with the rage. The rage in this film is, in this universe, it's very, very fast acting.
Yes.
Very potent, very fast acting. You get blood or saliva in your system, and you're done for in about like 30 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think later in the film there's a line from Selena that's like it's within like a heartbeat basically. Like it's literally like a second, which I think is again to this like new age zombie, right? Like I think in older movies you see this, they get bitten, you have to wait to see if they're going to turn. Then it's like the process of turning where it's like no bitch.
No.
If you get blood or saliva, you have turned.
Yeah, you're a goner.
So,
and I think that just the idea of being infected with rage, I think, is very like kind of it's very poignant, right? It's very like makes sense for this new adaptation of like the zombie, because like these zombies aren't running around eating brains and stuff. And I read something about how Alex Garland and Danny Boyle thought that was outdated, right? And how rage kind of zooms out a little bit, because you get like societal rage and like road rage and plane rage. Like rage is just so potent, I think, in the grander scheme of society, that it definitely adds to the modernization of the genre.
I will also say in the director's commentary, Danny Boyle got caught kind of ranting, and he let loose that at one point there had been discourse about basically making them rage-filled like sex machines and just like have them basically pillaging and raping people. And then there was like a pause in the director's commentary, and Danny goes, Alex is kind of looking at me like I need to kind of tone it down a little bit. And I was like, oh, you just fucking told on yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not really though.
So the woman turns, and then we get a taste of what that turning looks like. So it's like blood's fucking everywhere. It's coming out of her mouth. She whips around. We see the red eyes to see that she turns. They kill the scientist.
Yeah, and then
it's just mass chaos at that point. Monkeys turning, humans turning. It's just all over the place.
Yeah, and it just spreads rapidly. And then basically it's like a jump cut, and it's like 28 days later.
Yep. After
that incident in the lab.
Which it's like a nice. I think that's something you see through all the movies, right? Which I giggle because it's a cut to black, and then like 28 days later is in like the lower right hand corner, which is like. That's like a filter you can use on like iMovie. Like it's very like standard, like clip that in 28 days later, ... So
that's
I enjoyed
funny.
that.
Yeah,
but,
that is good.
Yeah, and then we cut to a hospital, and we don't know that this is Jim, but we meet our main character, Jim, who's butt-ass naked in a hospital bed. Kind of clearly something has happened, because he's like he has his IVs, he's attached to everything, and then he's basically like he's waking up, and it's like what the fuck is happening, and it's dead silent at this point. So it's like already I think in a hospital you would be like what, which I did have to ask. So if you're new here, my wife is a nurse. I had to ask Selena some medical questions, because I was like, I think the reality of this is like not spot on.
Probably.
I was like, 1, why is he naked? She's like, I have no idea. I have no idea why he doesn't have a gown on. 2, I was like, okay, if you're down for the count for 28 days, wouldn't you be intubated? So like the hose down the... She's like, yeah. She's like, there might be a scenario where you wouldn't be intubated, but she was like, I honestly don't know what it would be.
Yeah.
Which I was like...
It could have been like add to like the disorientation and the like gnarly factor if he had been intubated and he has to rip that out of his throat.
Exactly. That was going to be my comment, is like it, because I think if I had watched that the first time, I would have been like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because like that, you can do that. They have patients that do it all the time. They get too rowdy. So I'm like, I think that could have added a layer to that if he's.
I think so too. Yeah,
anyway.
But then poor Cillian Murphy doesn't want to have to do that.
Yeah, they would have had to rig something up for him.
I know, and then he's already naked for reasons unknown.
Yeah.
Also, I saw a fun fact online that he spends like 30% of this movie either naked or shirtless. So there you go.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah, it is.
All right. And then we get his hello. this is like kind of like our go-to line in this movie.
Yes, it is. And I saw one of the running gags like through the movie is that whenever he says hello, something bad happens.
Yeah.
Which is interesting when you fast forward to the end of the movie. But
Yes,
but yeah, definitely one of his standard lines. Also, they say fuck 61 times in this movie, so I thought that was also fun.
That's another fun fact. That's like probably roughly every 90 seconds.
Yeah. So I'm like, good for them.
Yeah.
I would also be saying fuck a lot too if it was the end of the world.
Yeah. And then he kind of just makes his way out. So like he's like peeking out the window, and then we see him that he's like found himself some scrubs and some shoes. Mm-hmm. And he like goes down the stairs and tries the payphones.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's working.
Which like I love, because I'm like, are there kids that watch this now that are like, what's that? Maybe.
Yeah.
And then helps himself to some soda. There's like a
busted vending machine. Yeah.
Smart enough to grab a bag and pack some sodas for the road. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would do that. Would you play this the way he played it?
I probably but I have all of this like context, right? Yeah. I have like I'm safe to assume that this is the end of the world, that there is nobody there. And maybe he doesn't know yet. So I think it's very forward thinking.
I also think that you and I are programmed in a way that if I woke up in a hospital bed and no one was in the hospital, I'd be like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It's arrived.
Yeah. No, really. I had an MRI one time, and all I could think is when I was laying in that machine, I was like, what if the zombie apocalypse happened right now? I'd be stuck in this machine. I'd be dead. That was my whole thought. There's a whole procedure. I'm like, oh my God.
That is incredible. Also, in the director's commentary, they said that they went back and forth about the way they shot the hospital scene and whether to leave the hospital as barren as it was or to litter bodies throughout.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't think there are a lot of bodies
There's
at all.
None.
There's no bodies even through when he's going through the streets of London.
Correct.
Until I think he gets to the church, right? And then there's all the bodies in the church. But I like that it was totally empty because that leaves like more questions, right? It adds to this layer of confusion because it's like, well, if everybody's dead, where is everybody? Yeah. Was it the rapture? Like, what is going on? Was it a war or something? You know, I think it adds to that kind of like, that like dreamlike, surreal kind of terror that comes from like not knowing what's going on and then not being able to have any context clues until he gets to the main square with all of the missing posters.
I would agree, and I think it was an interesting choice on their part because I think had they gone the bodies route, there's going to be a higher level of panic sooner.
Yeah.
Which probably means you're probably going to have to ramp up your first conflict a little bit because you're already ramped up, if that makes sense.
Exactly. I think I liked the choice of having him kind of stew in this surreal confusion.
As he is wandering the streets of London, to pull off shooting this, they apparently went out at like 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. They couldn't afford to shut down the streets of London. So they hired people and they shot like 90-second blocks.
Okay.
So like they basically got people on either end of the street to just hold traffic. They're like, 2 minutes, just give us 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They did their shot. They let cars go. And that's how they shot that sequence.
That's really interesting, actually. Because that's like, I was wondering how they did that. Because it is like, obviously it's not a set, right? Yeah. It's like actually London, and that's a huge undertaking of being able to do that.
Like, I just wonder if, like, I hope that this film is studied in film school, because I think it's, like, a really good lesson of, like, how to pull a movie off on a lower budget.
Yeah, how to be scrappy.
Yeah. So, he's just roaming the streets of London, aimlessly yelling, "Hello!" At one point, he, like, stops to pick up money in, like, a thing of trash. Which, I mean, if you've just woken up, you have no idea what's happening. If I see $100 bills on the ground, I might scrounge up and grab them.
Me too, for sure.
It was interesting. A lot of the director's commentary, they commented on how this film would have gone had they filmed it post 9/11.
Right, because it was filmed pre 9/11.
Yeah.
I did read
Just
that they got
barely.
Yeah,
Just barely.
Well, there was the celebratory shot when they're all I think with Frank and Hannah. That was shot on 9/11.
Oh.
And but I did read like the scene where, you know, he's walking through the desolate street. That was shot pre 9/11. And he got some flack for it because he was like, this was, and with the missing posters and stuff too, he was like, this was like insensitive, and he was like, well, we shot that before everything happened.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's a lot of commentary of like, oh, this is very reminiscent of 9/11, but again, it was shot before it happened, which I think is really interesting. That it's like, yeah, they weren't trying to rip off an actual tragedy. They just were like extrapolating what could happen when there is tragedy, right?
But he commented on the bus. Like, it's a very quick shot, but they turned a bus on its side as part of that walking through. He's like, post 9/11, we would have never been able to pull that off.
Oh yeah.
I was like, weird.
Yeah, that is weird. It is weird. Well, the whole world like lost its mind, right?
Well, yeah.
But one of my favorite shots when he is walking through the streets is like he's scrounging around and stuff, and then there's just this giant billboard of like these wide, it's like 3 people or something, and it's these wide smiling faces just kind of looming behind him as he's like in the middle of like figuring out what the fuck is going on and like trying to survive and stuff, and just like in the shadow of this smiling advertisement, I thought was really like, I thought that was like a small,
I missed that.
Yeah,
I
thought it was like a small touch, but like also like just adds to that kind of like what is happening, kind of the eeriness of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like those people probably don't exist anymore.
Yeah. So up till now, we've got kind of silence, right? So he's just kind of walking around in silence. He's yelling hello. That's basically all we've got. And then as he keeps going, he comes across we get music starting in the background, and it's kind of lower in volume and lower in tempo, and then he finds like a car and he sets the car alarm off that makes him jump back, and like we're slowly starting to ramp up, and then he sees a newspaper that says like evacuation across the top, and we're ramping and ramping and ramping, and then it finally leads us into a church where then we're like then we get our first, like, oh, all hell is breaking loose.
Yeah.
So he walks in, he walks up a staircase, and on the wall it says, repent, the end is extremely fucking nigh. And nigh apparently means a short distance away. I had to Google that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, is that...
The end is nigh. You heard that?
And then he gets to the top of the stairs and sees that the church is full of dead bodies.
Yeah, sure does. What do you even... I
would remove myself.
Oh yeah,
it's time to fucking go.
Yeah.
Also,
but it's like, where do you go? What do you do? This is the only sign of humanity that you've seen since you've woken up. You have no idea how long it's been.
I mean, the thought would be to try to go home.
Yeah. Okay.
Which we get there, but that would be my
eventually.
thought.
Yeah, that's
I'm also just curious, if it has actually been 28 days, when he opened that church, wouldn't it have smelled fucking awful?
Probably, yeah.
Because we get that later on. We get into more spaces where immediately they cover their mouth. But I'm like,
that's a good point. You could probably smell that from like miles away. Yeah. Would not be stepping in there. So, and one of my favorite notes, the church is full of dead bodies. This fucker starts saying hello again. Like, I'm definitely not saying anything. No way.
When I see a church full of dead bodies, I'm tiptoeing out at that point. So,
just like turning around, walking the other way.
So he yells hello, and then two of the bodies pop up.
Yes. What do you do?
To me, this is man logic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that definitely fits for the character, right? Like, he's very, like, he's just a guy, you know? And
He's just a bike courier.
Yeah, and I love that about that character, because it's like, he's not a hero, he's just a fucking guy who somehow survived this and is alive, and now has to deal with being alive.
So then the door opens, and it is the father, the priest, whatever, and he's like... I think at that point, he's like, Father, even though, and again, to these, like, new zombies, I really liked the way it's, like, this twitching movement they have, which, in the director's commentary, they even said they basically had, like, a movement coach come in to kind of, they use the term, like, choreograph it, as far as, like, script, like, these are the movement patterns that you need to be doing, which I was like, how do I fucking get that job?
And they casted mostly, for the infected, they casted mostly athletes to kind of, like, add to that terror that these creatures, these infected, are, like, stronger and faster than any of the people, and just kind of ramp that up, and I thought that was really cool.
I think those are the running scenes, for obvious reasons, because they did say this scene in the church, they were like, so we didn't really have enough money to pay enough extras for this, so we just got a bunch of local students to volunteer for this scene. Come be a pile of bodies for us, please.
I just looked it up, and I didn't know that their budget was $8 million, and their box office was $82.8 million, and I'm like, that's pretty good.
That's not bad,
I'd say.
Yeah. So the father gets closer. He finally puts 2 and 2 together of like, oh, this is not father. This is
Creature.
Yeah, like creature twitching, making their typical zombie noises, and he swings his bag of soda pop.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is wholesome.
And then he, like, immediately was like, I shouldn't have done that. And it's like, no, honey, it's okay. You should have. You need to run now.
Yeah. So he swings it. The father starts, like, crawling after him at that point, and he runs out, which I also asked Selena this question. I'm like, you're down for the count in a coma, 28 days. When you wake up, are you going to be able to sprint away from running zombies? She was like, absolutely not.
Absolutely
Wouldn't even
not.
stand a fucking chance.
Yeah.
Which we get a little bit of it in the staircase.
The tower,
you see it, but I'm like, motherfucker, you've been running for days now. Don't give me this.
Yeah.
Don't make this a plot device now.
Well, you know, it's all for the plot. It's fine.
Yeah. So at this point, the music is full throttle in that typical 28 days later theme that we get. And he's running. He runs past a gas station where we basically see really just like 2 masked individuals, I would say. Because again, the way it's shot, you're like, were those other people? What's happening? And they've got Molotov cocktails, and they're just lobbing them at these zombies, which I'm like, I could fuck with that.
Yeah,
I would like to think that I would be the masked individual lobbing Molotov cocktails.
It's a good method.
Yeah. They're yelling over here to get them to run to them. They do that, and then we get a cut shot that then kind of like zooms us out. Well, it's like a rapid set of shots, I should say. One of them being fully zoomed out. And then the gas station explodes.
Yes.
Which this was apparently their biggest budgetary item, obviously, because they blew up a gas station. It cost them about $250,000.
Yes. And then I also read that they had informed, like, the police department that they were doing this, but there was some mix-up on, like, when. So when they blew it up, the fire brigade did arrive, being like, what happened? And then it took them like hours to resolve this. That it's like, we had permission, we were allowed, like, yeah. So it was like a whole mess. It took like 6 hours to resolve that.
That's the day when you don't want to be in charge. Like, I think, I think that's the producer that handles shit like that.
Yeah.
I'm not the producer on that day.
No, thank you.
And there was probably an intern that got fired.
Oh yeah, probably. Poor intern. Always comes back to them.
Yeah. So now we've got our group of 3, and then they're still running, and they run down these escalators, and they're down into like a convenience store type of place with a thing. Situation. And they've got masks on, and this man is basically standing over Jim and tells him a joke about like a giraffe in a bar. I was like, what is this? And apparently there were like 2 or 3 different joke options they had.
Like, pick one.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Funny. Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah. But this is when we meet, like, kind of the rest. Well, not, how many were there? There was 2, 3 people?
So we're now a group of 3, including Jim.
Oh, including. So there was just the 2.
New people. But this is really our first scene we get introduced to anyone.
To any other people, any other characters. And I do like that there was like a relatively small cast for this, and I did really appreciate that. Because when you get into the second movie, I'm like, who are all of these people? There's so many things happening. Yeah. But I like the kind of more concentrated cast because it adds to that feeling of like isolation. Because like, these are our characters. You might be annoyed by them, but they're also annoyed by each other. Yeah. But yeah, so we meet random guy, can't remember his name, and then we also meet Selena, who's
Mark,
like our...
I think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He doesn't last very long. And then we meet Selena, who's like our main female lead, played by Naomi Harris, and
which I think she was incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's amazing. But yeah, so they kind of he's learning kind of what has happened, and that there was a virus and that it spread, and then it's interesting following this plot line. I think is important because it shows that, you know, you can write on the fly, right? Because in the beginning of the movie, Selena is like, before the radios went out, we heard reports that it was in Paris and New York.
Yes.
And then they started talking about something else, but I guess like the writers had that thought, and then they changed it like halfway through the film. They're like, actually, it'd be more interesting if it stayed contained here. And I'm like, you know what? Sure, that's fine. And that adds also, I think, to the sense of confusion where they're cut off. Yeah. They don't know what's happening. The media probably didn't know it was happening either. There could have been like, maybe someone got Ebola in one of those cities, and then the hysteria that comes from stuff like this, that kind of tumbles into the media and then feeds into like the collective hysteria, I think is interesting. So I think it's okay that they couldn't decide if it had spread or not.
Well, and to that point, an interesting like feed into that was in the director's commentary. They made the comment that apparently during this time in Britain, they were apparently having like a really bad outbreak of like hand, foot, mouth.
Oh, interesting.
And Danny makes the comment of like, it in Britain at this time, it felt like every time we turned around, they were trying to tell us there was another outbreak of something. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So he said that was also fed into that decision of, do we have it get on a plane and go to America, or do we keep it quarantined here?
Yeah, so. Definitely. And I just love I think that it changes too of like, instead of it being like an undead thing, of it being a virus, I think again adds to that like the modernization of the genre, because especially living in a post-COVID world, pandemics are terrifying, and they're also a lot more, they're realistic. I think it's a realistic fear, and that just kind of goes back to the whole idea of like the genre of horror reflecting our fears back at us.
Yes. 1000%.
You might even call them reflections of horror. Boo.
I'm so glad we're back.
I know, me too.
Okay, so we have our band of 3 now. We have our tidbit. This is where we find out for sure it's spread through blood and saliva.
Yes.
Because Selena makes that comment. And then our really only other tidbit is just the comment about New York and Paris, because that kind of comes back into play later on. Later in this franchise, I should say.
Yes.
So they also, Sweet Baby Jim. That's what we should call him. Sweet Baby Jim. He asks about the government. Well, what's the government doing? Selena's like, my guy, the government is fucking nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And then, again, Sweet Baby Jim's like, well, I need to go find my parents.
Yeah.
Selena's like, my guy, your parents are fucking dead.
See, he's just a guy.
Yeah,
you know?
he's just a sweet baby boy.
He's just a little guy. Yeah. And this is like, because Cillian Murphy had done other roles prior to this one, but this was like his breakout role. Yeah. This was like, which I think is really great, because he's like been in so many other things now.
We love a breakout role
in horror. Like, I think that's great. I think it's so cool, and he is one of my emotional support like male actors. I have a few of them, and he is definitely one of them. And I think he did a really good job, and he's just a fun actor, and also very Irish. So in the movie, he has an Irish accent, even though he was supposed to be British, and he couldn't really do a British accent. So they're like, you can just be Irish, it's fine.
And it honestly works for all Americans, because we're so fucking dumb we can't tell the difference between the two.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So he basically says, I have to go see my parents, and Selena's like, fine, but we only travel during daylight, and we never go anywhere alone. So again, kind of trying to start to set these rules by how they're gonna live for the rest of this movie.
Yep. Yeah, definitely kind of, that was like the purpose of like the first act. It's like acquaintance with the apocalypse, right? We're introducing our characters, we're learning the rules, and we're learning, we're figuring out what happened and how to survive. That's like first act. And that's what's kind of cool. I like a movie that has like kind of defined eras, defined acts. Yes. I think that's like, it's just a handy storytelling device.
So then we kind of cut, and then we get these wide shots of them walking in barren streets, on the train tracks, stuff like that. We get to the house, he gets the key, we go in, slow pan through the house. He rounds to go up the stairs, and this is the first time he covers his nose. So it's like immediately you're like, okay, mom and dad are rotting upstairs. He goes upstairs. Mom and dad are, in fact, corpses in the bed. They seem to have taken pills and booze, which,
hey,
it's an option.
It is an option.
It is a fucking option.
I used to ask this question, and I was like, okay, ground zero, apocalypse. Do you want to survive, or do you want to die? And I used to be like, yeah, I want to see what happens after. Not anymore. I'm good. I've seen enough already.
So my thing with this franchise is I like that it takes you through different parts in the apocalypse, and it has you think about that.
Yeah.
I think at 28 days, I might still be fighting.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair. Especially when you're still trying to figure out what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are we quarantined? Can we go to a different country and whatever? Which Mark does tell the story where Mark's family tried to go to the airport. Mass chaos. No way to get out. People get trampled. One person turns, and then you're done.
And then the whole thing goes. Yeah.
So, which that story actually made me think about the fact you really need like a friend that is a pilot.
Oh yeah.
Because you wouldn't be able to get out on a major airline. You gotta know a guy that knows a guy that has a plane out in these Illinois fields that we can just hop in.
Yeah, exactly. And then a lot of the big airports are in like major cities.
Oh yeah.
And I always am just like, I'm glad that we kind of live in like a non-major city area, because I always think about whenever any kind of like real life disaster happens, and if I start thinking about movies too hard, I'm like, there's no way you're getting out of Chicago.
No.
You're stuck there. You are stuck there. Maybe there's a lot of resources there, but you're stuck there.
Yeah.
I like the idea of just being able to drive into a cornfield.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. We're just going further south at that point.
Yeah.
But mom and dad this is kind of, I would say this is really the first. Well, you start with the dialogue between the three of them where you're like, oh, this is kind of character driven, like we're getting to know everybody. And then I think this is the first like really heart-wrenching part, because mom and dad have a photo of like kid Jim, and on the back it says, Jim, with endless love, we left you sleeping. Now we're sleeping with you. Don't wake up.
Yeah.
I read that, I'm probably doing pills and booze after that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because fuck me, man.
Yeah, really though. Because then you like, that's you're absorbing that with the idea that they had seen everything fall apart. Jim did not. He was out, right? So when they saw enough horror that are like, this is the best option, and the best option is for you to not wake up.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
I guess I hadn't thought about this, but this is part of it. Like, I guess depending on your age, like, yes, my knees and my ankles are bad, but if I have to, I could still run away from a zombie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But, like, I guess it is parents' age. They might have been, like, they're fast running.
Yeah.
No.
I'm going to have a heart attack instead, you know? Yeah. No,
so,
that's a good point.
Jim is, for obvious reasons, now very upset. Yeah. And Selena tries to explain, like, you should be happy they went the way they did. Yeah. Because it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, at least it was peaceful.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they explain it in the movie, but I guess they worked on, like, Selena's backstory of, like, why she's so cynical and kind of such a bitch. It's because she had to, basically, she had to kill her parents and her brother, I think. And so she had to see all of that violence and had to inflict some of that violence. So at least they're already dead. Jim doesn't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make the decision to stay in the house overnight, which we get this, like, kind of weird shot, which I would be curious to know how they shot it, but it's like you're getting a panning shot of the city, and, like, in the upper corner, you see one of them sleeping. So it's, like, almost like a split frame.
Okay.
Did you catch that?
I did not catch that one.
Yeah,
actually.
like, well, because it's cut weird.
Yeah.
Because usually cinematically, like, you usually split the frame in half or in thirds, and, like, this one was, like, a fourth of the corner was his face sleeping and the rest was the city. But then, as we're panning, then the city kind of, like, pans, and then you're going in with them. So it was kind of a weird transition. But...
Yeah. Well, they do a lot of kind of weird transition, a lot of sloppy cuts, like, kind of choppy edits and stuff, which I think it only adds to it. I mean,
it's a vibe.
It is a vibe, and I like that it's unpolished.
Yeah.
Because it feels more... You know, maybe that there is, like, just a scrappy camera watching all this happen, you know?
Yeah. So we get that little pan. Mark's sleeping. Jim is awake, kind of pacing the house, looking at keepsakes. You see, like, mom's recipes, I think. And he's lit a candle, and he looks at a photo on the fridge, and then it takes you into, like, it's a dream state, but it plays like a home movie.
Yeah.
And I had to laugh. I'm not going to name the podcast, but I was like, listening to a different podcast, and they were like, yeah, and he's watching home videos. I'm like, that's not a home video. That's
a memory.
That's not what that is. But again, it was a podcast of white men talking. Anyway, that's why we're here, for representation and good reviews on movies. But anyway, it's him in the kitchen having this kind of flashback moment of they're, like, unloading groceries, like it's nothing of substance. But,
but it's like nothing of substance, but still, like, a lot that's like what he remembers, right? It's the normality of it, right? Where it's like you're not really ever going to be unloading groceries again. I don't think. Yeah,
it's true. But I think it's also, it plays into, like, the tempo of the movie, right? So, like, you're watching this dream state, and as a viewer, you kind of relax, and he's obviously zoning out. And then, like, he comes back right in time for a zombie to come crashing through the skylight and, like, through a window or through the door or something.
Yeah, the neighbor.
Yeah, which, again, sweet baby Jim. Selena and Mark have to come, kill them, whatever, and Jim's basically like...
That was the neighbor!
Yeah, that's Mr. Jones from down the street. And Selena's just like, are you bit? Are you bit? Like, I don't care. This is your neighbor.
Did any of the blood, like, get in your mouth? And she's, like, yelling at him. And then we pan over to Mark. And Mark's got a big old cut on his arm. And, which is very bad because he's also covered in zombie blood.
Yes.
And Selena, no fucking hesitation, sees the cut, comes at him with a fucking machete. And at first, I feel like you think that she's just going to cut his arm off.
Yeah.
But then she just keeps going. And, kills her buddy with, like, no hesitation.
Which, like, I think, again, it's a good play on, like, the zombie tropes, right? Where, like, you're going to meet these groups of people, and usually there's going to be a man and a woman who are romantically involved, or they've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
And so I think going in, you find these two, Jim's going to be an add-on, and it's like, no, like, Mark's disposable, Selena doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I would agree, it is the quickness in which she just starts swinging that machete where you're like, oh, Selena's that bitch. Like, she is not...
She's not fucking around.
Yeah.
She is, she's a survivor.
So, here's another question I have. So, obviously, we're setting this up on purpose that Selena and Jim are very different personality types.
Yes.
28 days into this.
Yeah.
Which personality type are you?
Oh, well, also, you have to remember the context that Jim probably is that personality type because he just woke up.
Yeah,
true.
Jim's technically day 2.
This is day 1 or 2 for Jim. And, you know, she's been at this like a month.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's hard for me to think about putting myself in that headspace because I feel like I'm too soft. I'd be a goner. You know, I'd be a goner. I would sacrifice myself, and then I'm
gonna have to fucking carry you through the zombie apocalypse too. I'm gonna be like, Kale, shut up! Whoosh, me with a machete.
Yeah, no, that probably is it. And I'm like, but we can figure something out. We can try.
So,
and then I just
This is where the fast turning zombies. So not even the fact that they're fast moving. It's how quickly people turn. Ever since The Last of Us, and we get into it in 28 weeks later, I struggle with killing someone immediately because immunity is a possibility.
That's true.
But it's like, it's a fucking gamble if you give them a minute to turn.
Yeah, it is a gamble.
So
it's a big gamble.
That is where I struggle.
I think
because I have to hope that I would be elite enough that I would be immune. Is where because like all these people are like, they have these conversations where it's like, if I get bit, shoot me. Do not fucking shoot me. I will shoot you before you can shoot me, and then I'll turn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because I like to think I got a good immune system.
You do? Yeah. Yeah.
Even
think
though
you got those mutations in you.
Even though COVID took me down for like fucking 5 days, so probably not. But I have to hope.
Yeah. No, I think like having that conversation of like, all right, like the if it comes down to it, just kill me kind of thing. I'd be fine with that. I'd be like, you know what? If I do have immunity, too bad. You know, don't risk it. It's fine, really. You know, I don't want to risk it. So just, you know.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I like to think that my character arc in the zombie apocalypse, if I lived that long, would be I would be really hardened in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then towards the tail end, I would probably soften up because we've been at it long enough.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense for you. I think it does. Yeah. I think mine would probably be the opposite. I would start out soft, and then I'd have to learn again and again and again to be hard, unless I just died. So,
fingers crossed. So yeah, she just casually hacks Mark up, and then it's like, start packing. We have to leave. More will be coming.
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta go, like, right now.
Sweet baby Jim is just like, how did you do that? And she's like, you need to fucking pack. We're leaving.
Yeah.
And he's like, why did you kill him? And Selena's like, my guy, come the fuck on.
Yeah. Get with it already. So yeah, and then they kind of head out on the road together after his helpless ass is saved, because he's quite helpless.
And this is like one of my favorite lines from her. Well, one, I think it is worth noting in the conversation about Mark. He's like, why did you kill him? Like, you don't know. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I could tell by the way he looked at me that he knew. Mm-hmm. And I was like, or he just knows how you fucking are.
True.
And he knew that he was about to be in trouble because you've got a machete and thinks that he's gotten blood in his open wound.
Which he probably did. He was covered in blood.
But then as they're walking, they're kind of having this conversation, and Jim's being sweet baby Jim, and she's like, look, basically like, do you think that we should, like, make plans? What do you want to do? Like, fall in love and fuck? Like, we should just get rid of those plans right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I wrote down kind of something similar that she said. She's like, plans are pointless. Staying alive is as good as it gets. And I felt that.
I think we all feel that right now.
Yeah.
Again, why we're covering this right now.
Yeah.
This season's going to be a vibe for everybody, I hope.
I hope so, too.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good. Oh, yeah.
We got good ones on the docket.
We do.
They're walking. She's basically talking at him now, basically trying to be like,
this is how it's going to go.
Yeah, and he looks up on a skyrise and sees flashing Christmas lights. Mm-hmm.
Is 28 Days Later a Christmas movie?
No. And again, I think I've heard other people make this comment of like, oh, it's Christmas. I don't think it's Christmas. I think Frank is living with a child, and a child is going to enjoy Christmas. So if you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, you're going to let your daughter do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So decorate for Christmas. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You could die any day now. We're shitting in a bucket.
Yeah.
Put up the Christmas lights, play the Christmas music, have a great time, honey.
That does make sense. And plus, it's like, they're in England, and it seems hot out, so it's definitely, there's no snow, so it's definitely not like Christmas time. But good point. Anyway, they see the Christmas lights, and they're like, well, let's go check that out.
Yeah.
And then they
But
head
again,
out.
for me, like, for Frank and Hannah, why would you do that? People could find you then.
I think that was the point. I think they wanted people to find them
Because they knew they needed help.
Yeah, like they needed help because they get into that once because spoiler alert, they do link up together and they go up there and then Frank is like, or no, Jim is one of them. It's probably Selena who said they need us more than we need them, kind of thing. And that might be true because they're like they're running out of water. It's just the two of them. Like they're just holed up there, but like resources run out.
Yeah.
And you need bodies to go and find more resources.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think that they were looking for other survivors. Maybe they wanted to help people. Maybe they were like, we're getting desperate too.
Yeah.
Could go either way. But they head to these apartment buildings. It's like a big, tall building. Obviously, elevators aren't working, so they're making their way. They have to climb over a barricade of shopping carts.
Which I, like, made a mental note of this, because I think as I consume zombie media, I'm always like... That's one you could take.
Yeah.
That's one you could put in the arsenal.
Yeah.
I don't think I would think to use that.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I do wonder, because, like, all our shopping carts now are, like, plastic. And I wonder if, like, the old-fashioned, like, metal shopping carts would, like, they'd link together better.
Probably.
Because I feel like plastic could just be slipping off each other.
That's true.
Yeah.
You'd have to, like, zip tie it together or something.
Yeah, exactly. And with those ones, you could just kind of jam them in, and it made a pretty good cage. Anyway, they climb all those shopping carts. They start heading up the stairs. And Jim's exhausted. He has no fat. He's sitting on he's like, well, they're walking up, and then Jim's like struggling, and Selena's like, do you need a break? And he's like, no. And then he makes another couple steps, and he's like, I do need a break. And then, like, sits down. So he's crashing because he's only had soda and candy to eat the last, like, yeah.
I need to, not to sound like a fucking meathead, but I have to have a balanced protein, fat, carb ratio. If I go too heavy on carbs, I feel like dog shit.
Yeah, I definitely
would
need
be down for the
protein. If I go like all day without eating and I have not had any protein, I'm like, I do get the shakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel that. Like poor Jim, he's like sitting there and she's like, well, you have sugar, you have more sugar. What kind of sugar do you want? And I just thought this scene was really cute because she was like, there's like Pepsi and then some like lemon lime thing. And he's like, do you have, what do you call it, like Faygo or something?
Tang
like,
or something?
Yeah. And she's like, actually, I do. He doesn't get it because down at the bottom of the stairwell, there's a bunch of infected that have heard them, found them, crawling over the shopping cart thing really easily.
That's the shit about this brand of zombie. If I was in a stairwell and I looked down and it's like a split cut, right? So we're getting their vantage point of looking down the stairwell and hearing them. And then we go back to ground level and I think there's like 3 of them maybe.
Yeah.
You see them just sprint and fucking clear the...
Easy.
I would just... That would be... Give me the booze and the pills because I don't want to...
Fast zombies, I could not survive. I can't outrun shit. I'd be dead. I'd be dead immediately.
It's not a good time.
Yeah, especially running up the stairs. So now they're running up the stairs, and like, it's like it's a giant building. Yeah. They're at like the top floor, and
this scene is so anxiety-inducing.
It is, yeah. And the because like Selena's like running ahead, and he's like. He's like, don't leave me.
It's like a back and forth screaming of Jim being like, Selena, don't leave me. And Selena's like, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah. It's good. And then at the top of the stairs, they kind of like jump scare. There's a gigantic man in like riot gear with a fucking shield. And he's like, and then he like steps aside and he like opens his shield. He's like, go, like 157.
Yeah.
Flat 157. And they like pause a minute and then they run. And then Frank, as we learn, the father figure, he like barricades off the zombies. They're banging on the door. There's Frank's daughter Hannah in there. And if a couple people were like coming screaming and my dad is out there and like they're screaming, they're like, let me in, open the fucking door, let me in. I don't know if I'd let them in either. Yeah. I might be like, what is my dad doing? Like, is he okay? Are you coming in to kill me? Like, what's going on?
And finally dad goes, Hannah, let them in. And then she opens the door and they all get back into the apartment.
Yeah. Close off the door. They're pretty safe.
Fun fact for that scene, so Selena has like a big like flashlight-ish thing. So apparently in her backpack, they had to give her like a 50-pound battery pack to keep that running during this scene.
Really?
Yeah, so they were commenting on how strenuous this scene was to shoot, obviously, because it's just them fucking sprinting upstairs.
Yeah. Oh my god. That's...
I was like, that's unfortunate. I'd rather not.
Yeah, same. So yeah, there are a bunch of Christmas lights, everything's bright and blinking, and, what was your first, like, impression of Frank?
Either, it's kind of like twofold, right? Because I think it's either he's gonna die soon because he's weak, or he has ulterior motives.
Yeah, for sure.
And it could be an either or, was my vibe for him.
Yeah, I think so too, because I was watching this with my friend, and he's like, I don't trust that guy. And I'm like, word, I understand that. I probably wouldn't trust him either.
Because granted, he immediately serves them drinks.
Yeah.
Do you take the drink?
Oh, no. So I don't think Selena did, right?
Yeah.
Selena's like, no way. I'd be like, no thank you.
Yeah.
But I guess it depends on how desperate I am. Because if I've been living through, like, the literal apocalypse and someone's offering me alcohol, I might just fucking take it.
You're like, if this takes me out, it takes me out. I'm down.
Like, that's okay with me.
So, they've got the Christmas music and Christmas lights are up. Fun fact, so the faint Christmas music playing in the background is Frosty the Snowman. That was the most expensive music they had to pay for.
What?
In this movie, that cost them the most.
That's so funny.
And what dedication.
Yeah.
You're balancing a budget, and they're like, that's going to be really expensive. And he's like, I have to have Frosty.
I have to have Frosty. There couldn't have been any other Christmas music. Maybe that's in the public domain. He's like, it's got to be Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, and then Dad basically unplugs the lights, I think kind of as like a we're going to bed now.
Yeah.
And then Jim is in the bathroom trying to dry shave, which hurts me.
Yeah, that was rough.
So
trying to clean up. It's
so
okay.
Apparently there is a scene that they shot where he like fully shaves his head.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they said where they shot this scene, they then had to go back and do like reshoots, and they had to give him a wig.
Oh no. So then they just cut it.
And I'm just like,
why?
Yeah, I'm like,
why?
Why did you feel like you needed to have a scene of him shaving his head too?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a symbolic, like I'm shaving away who I used to be or whatever.
Yes, I don't know, but I thought that was silly that they were like, yeah, we had to do some reshoots, so we had to figure out a wig for him. I'm like,
and then they just like cut the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because he just walks out and his head is shaved now, and
Yeah.
that's that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then we get the moment in the doorway where Frank tries to be like, so you and Selena, do you need a bed? And
Yeah.
Jim's like, no.
No. I'll take the couch. That's fine.
And then that's where we get the conversation between Jim and Selena next out in the living room where...
Yeah, where they're like, they need us more than we need them kind of thing, because Selena is,
oh, yeah.
And
Selena. Then, of course, sweet baby Jim's like, I think they're nice.
Yeah. Sweet baby.
But I will say, I like the way that conversation ends, though, because, like, he says, like, I think they're nice.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't fucking get it. And he's like, well, I do get it. And she's like, sure. And walks out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I like their dynamic. I think it's, like, a good... trope kind of to have like one like cynic and then one optimist.
I know that you have your feelings about masculinity in this video. I almost said in life because that's also
true. Yeah.
I do think it is something worth pointing out that really their gender roles are flipped, because I think in a lot of movies you would get the girl that's like, oh, they're nice,
yeah,
and then it's like the super
the
angry man, basically.
Who was like, no.
It does bear the question, do they feel like they had to cast a black woman to fill that angry role? Ooh, I think there's a lot of...
That's a good question.
There's some race in this movie that I hate.
Yeah, there is.
Which we'll get to later, but...
Yeah. I think we're thinking of the same thing,
yeah, probably.
Actually.
So I think... if I ever got famous enough to interview people and I got to interview Danny, I would ask him that.
Yeah.
I would flat out be like, did you feel like you had to cast a black woman for this?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. That being said, I still do like her character, but I do definitely see what you mean about like, oh yeah, that is kind of like angry black woman role.
Yeah. You can't get away.
You can't escape it. You can't escape it.
Unfortunately, so then we cut to the next day. Frank takes Jim up to the rooftop, and in the director's commentary, they said it's thousands of buckets on this rooftop.
Didn't look like thousands to me. It looked like maybe a couple hundred, but
my favorite were the laundry baskets.
I know. I saw those too. Because they're trying to use the buckets on the rooftop to collect rain. It hasn't rained in 10 days in Britain, which is crazy. Like that's how you know that it's just like God has abandoned you.
Yes, yeah.
And they're like trying to use plastic to catch condensation and stuff too, but it only works, as I learned when I was reading, if there's soil, because soil, it's on asphalt and like concrete, and so like catching that's why it wasn't working, because like there's no condensation because there's nothing for the moisture to cling onto. So if they had brought up some dirt, then they would have got like condensation that could drip into the buckets.
That's the shit where it's like you have to Google that prior to the zombie apocalypse, because you're not gonna have Google in the middle of it. But like I'm never gonna figure that out.
Yeah, I think maybe I would have eventually been like, we actually need something moist to catch the moisture.
I like to think that my role will be to either take out zombies and or hunt for food.
Yeah, okay.
I just know that that's going to be my role. I'm not smart. I don't know. My garden is looking pretty good outside. I could help with the veggies.
Yeah, I think you could. We'd get there. Yeah. You know, it's just all trial and error as long as you survive long enough.
Then others you just die off.
Yep.
Now we're back on the balcony. And they've got a hand crank radio, which again, like mental note, probably something good to have.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hand crank flashlights too.
Yeah. Do they even still make those?
Probably.
I hope
there's enough preppers out there that there's probably still a market for it.
My brother probably has both those. Yeah, but I was like, well, that would be good. But basically, Frank is saying like there's been a broadcast that they caught, basically saying that there is military personnel and. Does it say a cure or like a...
There's like... I think it was like just survivors come here, like we can help you.
Yeah, but in like alluding to like you'll be safe from the virus here. Yep. So it's on loop. It's been playing, and they kind of have some back and forth of if they should go, should we not? What happens if we get there and everybody's already dead? We have no idea what we're walking into. Yada yada yada. So
if we could die trying to go there, but we were also just going to die here because we don't have any water, blah, blah, blah.
And then they did think about putting this scene inside of the apartment, but they were like, we were kind of tired of the apartment because it's just so tight. It's so small, and they already have those shots in there. Yeah. They were like, we just decided to shoot on the balcony instead.
There you go. That's great. We love the director's commentary.
I love director's commentary because, like, I don't know, for me, it's like... I think I have this illusion of like you write the script and then you go film the movie and the script is the movie, but it's like no, the script is like a rough draft and then you just get there and like kind of wing it.
It's a guideline, not a rule. Yeah.
So,
which is also interesting because I was reading something about. No, I was watching something. It was a video by Jason Pargin, who I follow on Instagram. He's an author and he has a lot of like interesting commentary on random things, and was talking about how a lot of movies nowadays have incomplete scripts and are going through and things are being rewritten as they're shooting. Jesus. Which is why kind of maybe movies feel a little bad these days because they don't have a foundation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of fucking
and then
sense,
it's like,
honestly.
And if you have actors who are trying to do their job and act, but they keep changing motivations, actions, back and forth, and it's like, how am I supposed to act an incomplete character?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Which is pretty interesting.
That's fair. And now we find out Frank's a taxi driver.
Yeah.
So they just get in Frank's little taxi, everything packed on top and in the back, and then they just drive off and try to find this settlement of army people.
Yeah, they do. They go out. They hit the road, which I I would probably be hitting the road too. I wouldn't try and stay there.
Because it's like, you're just shitting in a bucket and
and waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, and it's like, do you know who else is in the high-rise with you?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they're a liability and all of a sudden, if one day the infected gets in, you have nowhere to go?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
So it's
in
like,
a high-rise is crazy,
Yeah.
actually. You need
Well,
a
it's
rope down to the
it's
fucking
like-
ground or something.
It's like a catch-22, right?
Yeah.
Like, in theory, you think you're safe because you're high up, but it's like, but if they do get in?
It's a dead end.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So
take to the taxi. Is the tunnel scene before the grocery store scene?
yes.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, they come to a tunnel, and Jim is like, this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Let's not go in this tunnel. And I agree with Jim.
Yeah.
Don't go in the tunnel. If it is the apocalypse, don't go in the tunnel. Just
Yeah.
don't do it. I read The Stand. Don't go in the tunnel. Don't do it. Frank drives into the tunnel anyway because it's faster. Take the long way. You're not on a timeline.
Selena even agrees with him. She's like, it's the most direct route. Take
Yeah.
it.
Who cares? Take the scenic route. You're not on a timeline.
Yeah.
It's fine. Maybe you're going to use a little extra gas. Just go siphon some more off. Don't go in the tunnel.
Because they have the conversation, because it's like, if it's the most direct, everyone will have taken this route, so we don't know what we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll get blocked off, and then you'll be stuck.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. So they go in the tunnel. There is a mound of cars and debris and stuff in this tunnel because everybody had the same idea, and they took the goddamn tunnel.
Yeah.
And Frank is just like, I'm just going to drive over it. I'm just going to drive over
Which
this
it-
pile of stuff. And I'm like, what is happening?
At this point, I would be like, oh, we're fucked. 'Cause
Yeah.
this guy
Oh, we're so dead.
It has a fucking screw loose. Because
Yeah,
What is he
it's
think
just
he's
a
doing?
little crazy.
If we're in, like, a 2026 Bronco high sport, Hummer, some sort
Yeah.
of luxury SUV, I might be behind it.
This is a taxi from like the 80s. Like,
Absolutely the fuck not.
no.
Absolutely the fuck not.
So they clatter over this giant thing, but it's funny because like I like that they're all kind of like laughing and screaming together because I do like there's like after they kind of have this like found family dynamic, there are a lot of like really nice moments.
Yeah.
That like kind of show like joy bubbling up, and I really appreciated that. So them like laughing and screaming as they're going over this thing while Frank is doing this crazy thing, I thought was fun. But then inevitably they do get a flat tire, and Jim is like pissed. He's like, what? So then they have to like get out and change the tire. He's like, we got to make this quick. Because as they're like setting up to change the tire, a horde of rats come running.
Yeah.
And
When you saw rats, what was your first thought?
oh, for sure, infected. Like they're running, like they're fleet. Because it's like, I don't know. I think it's a trope. It's like a motif, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like all the rats are jumping ship. You know, they're jumping ship. They feel a disaster because animals feel things coming, right?
Which rats become something for this franchise. We get them in all the movies. But my first thought was, oh, the rats are infected. The rats are going to take them down.
Oh,
Yeah, that was my first thought.
not the zombie rats.
Yeah, zombie rats. If a fucking look, here's the caveat: if a zombie rat bites me, just take me out. Just take me out because that's embarrassing. How'd she turn a
zombie rat?
My
got her.
pride is gonna get to me on that one.
Have you heard of a movie called Zombievers?
I have heard of it. Have
Yeah.
you
Oh,
watched
I've
it?
watched it a couple times actually.
Ew.
It's amazing because they're zombie beavers, right?
Yeah.
They're not just zombies, they're not just beavers, they're zombie beavers.
Yeah.
So when they bite you, you don't just turn into a zombie, you turn into a zombie beaver. Where you grow the little teeth and the fucking little tail, and then one of the zombie beavers bites a bear, and we get a zombie beaver bear, and it's cinematic perfection. I love it.
You guys, if you have a movie idea, just go make it.
Yeah, why not?
There is
Fuck it.
plenty of room for you in the genre. I can tell you that much.
Anyway, yeah, definitely go watch Zombievers. Actually, that's my zombie movie when I think about zombies. Classic.
Oh God.
Anyway, rats come,
Yes.
infected close behind. They are scrambling to change a tire, and I'd be dead here because I don't know how to change a tire.
Neither do I.
Yep. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
So my thought was, though, honestly, when he blew that tire, I'm like, why wouldn't you keep driving?
Yeah, drive on a flat. I've driven on a flat.
It bare minimum, get out of the fucking tunnel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Nope.
then change your tire.
I agree.
Was actually my first thought when he blew it.
Yeah.
But
no, that's a very, very good point. That's what I would keep doing. I think I did briefly have that point as the zombies were coming. I'd be like, just drive on the flat tire, bust the rim, it doesn't matter. I've driven on a flat tire for way too long because I didn't know it was flat, and I was fine.
Car's still running.
Yeah.
One thing I do like about this movie is, like, I should say the franchise almost, you never get, like, a proper horde of zombies. Like a handful.
It's a trickle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 5 to 10, but it's still fucking terrifying. I think it's because they're hauling ass.
Yeah, because they're fucking super fast.
I would also wonder if it also went to just the logistics of shooting people sprinting at top speed, because I would imagine the more extras you put into that, the higher the risk of they're gonna trip over each other.
Yeah, probably. It's probably like a budget thing too. Yeah. But like,
because you even see it in 28 years later, you never really get more than about 10, maybe 15.
Maybe there just aren't a lot of people in the UK, and they're like, there you go. But yeah, because I think that's a good point. Because even in probably logistically, it's hard. Because even in The Walking Dead, I feel like when they shoot those huge horde, like scenes, a lot of those are CGI. Yeah. So it's probably a logistics thing, which is like too bad, because like I would love to see like 100 zombies or something.
Maybe one day we'll get somebody who gets handed like a Marvel size budget. Yeah. And they're like, go make a zombie movie.
Yeah. And then I mean, even in like World War Z, which is not a very good movie, a lot of those are CGI too.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Practical effects are just so much better though.
Yes.
But like also, like, how would you shoot that? Would you shoot that many people? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Again, it's down to logistics, because you'd probably need more cameramen if you're going to stay with this jumbled kind of, like, it feels like sometimes in some of the scenes, it's like the camera is running with the infected. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, okay, do you put several cameramen in there? But then it's like, how do you make sure that a camera doesn't catch a camera? Yeah, it sounds like a fucking nightmare.
It does.
So they get the tire changed just in time to dive back into the car and drive off. And I found it interesting that when they drive off, the infected stop chasing them.
They do. They like trot. They slow to a stop.
Yeah, and one of them, you can tell, you're like, that extra is fucking exhausted from filming this, because he's kind of like hunched over. Yeah. And it's just like, for me, it gives them that human feel. Mm-hmm.
Because they are people. They're just...
Because they're like, it's a car. I'm not chasing after a car. I'm not going to get to it.
Like, it's crazy, because I think that, like, shows that they're maybe smarter. They're not nearly as mindless as you'd probably assume. Yeah. You know, and that's... You know, there's nothing scarier than a smart zombie. Yes. Then what? If a zombie can use a door handle, then you're screwed.
Yeah. Or, well, you're also screwed if they just come bashing in also.
That's true. Yeah.
So next we get your stop at the grocery store.
Yeah. They're driving, and then Selena's like, pull over. And then it is a grocery store, and they walk in, and it's like fully stocked. Yeah. Which was really interesting. Like, everything is like gleaming, and they just go through. All of them grab a cart, and they all go through, and they start loading up everything. And then Frank is like Jim's looking at the booze, and like Frank is like, no, not that one. If we're gonna be stealing things, you're stealing. It's top shelf. Yeah. And then he's like describing the whiskey to them. And then my other favorite scene is when like Frank's over by the apples, and the apples are fine. Yeah. They are still gleaming 28 days later, and he was like, irradiated. Like, that's so funny.
This is apparently our first nod to Romero.
Oh.
So apparently, and again, sorry, I don't remember which one, but apparently one of his movies takes place in a grocery store. Okay. So this is their first nod to Romero. We get a couple throughout here.
I love the shopping center zombie movies, because I love like the malls and the grocery stores. The grocery store also makes me think of like The Mist. Yes. Which there's just something. I think it's because that is one of the best places to get an unlikely band of people together to figure out how to survive together. Like, it's just an interesting way to set up like how do we make this social dynamic more complicated? Yeah. Because everybody has to go to the goddamn grocery store everybody.
Yeah.
So you get a whole like mix of people, and it just adds a different layer. And I also like the liminality of like a grocery store, because it's just like, what is going on? There's so many things.
Yeah.
So many aisles. The lights are so bright.
Yeah. In a zombie apocalypse, what would be your go-to items you're trying to find? No more than 3.
No more than 3?
Yeah, just you're like, oh my god, I miss this. Like, I need this.
So like we're talking like not supplies, but like food.
Yeah, food. In not even like necessities. I'm talking like
Treats.
Yes.
Treats. What are my apocalypse treats?
Treats. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. Probably chips, like salt and vinegar chips.
Okay.
I love those.
Yeah.
And then probably just usually what I'd get. I'd be like my usual. I'm going for snacks. This is my run.
Yeah.
It's the end of the world. I want my snacks.
Yeah. Fair. I had Lay's potato chips.
Okay.
The basic.
Just the basic ones?
Yeah, man. There's just something about laying back during the apocalypse, pop those open. I will inhale an entire bag in one sitting. It's just my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
And then my caffeine sources.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A Red Bull.
Yeah.
For me.
So either my little pink sugar-free Red Bulls I like right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have like another can that I would do, and I would be on the hunt for coffee. So
coffee.
Like instant coffee. And 28 days in, I would probably still be going for like the cold brewed jugs.
Okay.
You can get.
Yeah.
I would say they're probably not bad.
Yeah, they're probably
the
fine.
The plastic hasn't eroded.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So
I'd probably also go for booze too, though. I'm
yeah.
like trying to find like something that I can drink without needing a mixer.
I don't think I'm going for booze yet. 28
yet?
days in, because I've always thought about that. I'm like booze in the apocalypse. I know
It's not a good mix.
I know
However,
we're obviously trying to cope.
Yeah.
But if shit goes sideways, you're 12 Trulies in and the zombies come in. I'm done for.
better probably booze than like weed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be high and with the threat of zombies like hanging around. That would be.
Would you just be giggling and pointing?
No, I'd be like comatose.
Oh.
I'd be just like I'd be like, oh, the zombies are here. I can't move.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lay here while they eat me.
Which, this is an interesting topic because really along the way, I mean, this is part of like Selena's plot, right? Is she like used to be a chemist, so she's like.
I missed that.
Oh yeah, so she has. We'll get into it, but there are a couple different scenes where she has like Valium.
Oh, okay, yeah. A chemist, like a pharmacist?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
got
maybe
it.
a pharmacist, maybe not a whatchamacallit.
So I'm thinking chemist, I'm thinking beakers,
Yeah,
and goggles.
No. I meant pharmacist. So then they're back on the move. We get this kind of interesting shot of them like going past tulips, but they made it like a mosaic effect. Which I don't know what the choice was there. But yeah.
Just for vibes.
Yeah, vibes, I guess.
I think a lot of stuff is like just for vibes, you know? It's like you're passing all this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the vibes. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. That's fair. And then they drive up to kind of like an abandoned truck and a restaurant. We find out they need to siphon some gas out of the truck, which the thought of that just seems awful. Because you have to like either I think you suck in to get the vacuum, but it's like you always end up with a mouthful of gas, and then it's like I'm like, how long does it take to get the taste of gas out of your mouth? I would imagine a long time.
Probably a long time. You don't want to swallow any either. You might accidentally, but I could siphon the gas. I think I could do it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll put it on your list.
All right.
And then Jim, for some reason, in a zombie apocalypse, goes, "Let me wander into this abandoned restaurant by myself just to kind of check it out."
Yeah, and then she asks him, she's like, Selena asks, like, we have enough food, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He was like, we don't have any cheeseburgers. And he's like, kind of like, he's being a little sulky, I think. Which, you know, I feel like you're allowed to be a little sulky at the end of the world.
Yeah.
But he goes in, and it's like, abandoned, empty, there's some bodies around. The cheeseburgers are probably rotted, so I don't know what you're doing, Jim.
Also
but but he like is wandering around, and then he gets jumped pretty much by a little boy zombie.
So I didn't really connect this, but in the commentary they said, because he says his line of hello, and that's when the kid jumps out.
Yes.
And they say on the commentary that they wanted these zombies to be triggered by human voice was
Interesting.
their trigger to find them.
Okay.
Which I was like, that's interesting.
That is interesting. That's cool, and I think that's more interesting than just, like, noise.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
But
you're
I'm like-
looking for human... Like, I could see that being, like a virus driver, right? Because, like, viruses can make... viruses and then also, like, fungi and stuff can make you do all kinds of weird things, right?
Yeah.
To further the life of the parasite or the thing that's inside you, right? Because that's all about, it just wants to replicate and grow, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can turn people, you can't really turn, like, rats, right?
Yeah.
Is it cross-species?
It is not.
It's only primates.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, because people say it's not cross-species, but it clearly is, because it started in primates. But I guess you could make the argument primates to human and our connection to primates and that evolution process.
Yeah, probably. I think
would
that's
probably be the cop-out to that
I
argument.
think that's the reasoning there. But
Good point.
yeah, it makes you do all kinds of crazy things. So I can see that instinctual, like, drive to be to find human voice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He says,
I don't know if that translates to the rest of the franchise, does it?
So that was my thing, is I'm like, well, if that was your thought, I think you could have done more to make that a little bit more obvious. But when you think about this movie, at least, if you think about when zombies show up, that argument does stand up.
Okay.
I think.
All right. Makes sense.
I don't know. But yes, we get a zombie kid, which I would be curious if we have one in the Romero films, because to me, I think this is like the first iteration of a literal child that you have to bash in with a baseball bat.
Yeah. And it followed. It followed after, for sure. There's lots of zombie kids. I mean, one of the first zombies in The Walking Dead was a zombie child.
Yeah.
That Rick had to shoot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is also Jim's first kill.
Yeah.
Was a kid.
Yeah.
And there was something also that I was reading that it's the only zombie in the franchise to say something.
Oh yes. Yeah.
It said it was saying, like, I hate you, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's the only instance. And I just wonder again if that's, like, was that real, or was that, like, a Jim in a Jim's brain, like, he heard that, or was it? I
think he says it because, again, they reference it on the commentary.
Okay.
I couldn't remember what he said back. That's why I didn't bring it up. But it is, I hate you. And I think it's real, and I think it goes down to them being infected with the rage virus. So I think it's trying to play into that, plot device. And he walks out as if nothing happened. He just cleans off the baseball bat, and it's like, I didn't find anything.
Yeah, he was going through something there, I think. Yeah. So they are back in the car, and they're back on the road, and I think this sequence in kind of like Act 2, which is like the finding family at the end of the world thing.
Yeah.
It's like they know the rules now. There's some like close calls, but they're able to like kind of move through the world with some like relative competence. And it's like letting us fall into this pattern of like kind of some levity, some like lightheartedness. They're getting to know each other better, but it's like that's like kind of building a sense of dread, because inevitably, given the genre that we're in, something is going to go wrong. Yeah. So they like settle down at these like ruins, and again, it's kind of like they're coming together. This is when Selena like takes out her pills, because like Hannah's having trouble sleeping. They see some wild horses. They have a picnic. And we kind of get this like more in-depth look at like Frank, and I just really found him to be like a really good like fatherly figure. Like he's really like caring and like protective, but not in like a domineering way, and just like a good guide. And I'm like, that's a cool, like up until like the next chapter, essentially, like a lot of the masculinity that we're seeing in this movie is like good. It's like decent. It's like there's not a lot of toxicity there. Yeah,
and it even takes Jim and Selena into this conversation where Selena makes the comment of like, I think I was wrong saying, like, the only thing to live for is, like, trying to stay alive. Like, look at Frank and Hannah.
Yeah.
And, like, that father-daughter relationship is really worth staying alive for. And, like, that. So she kind of gets to that, and then she gives Jim a little kiss on the cheek.
I know. And I love it, because I get annoyed often when you have a male and a female character, and it's like, oh, well, they're probably going to end up together, because that's annoying, because it is, like, heteronormative and whatever. But I do like them. I think the kind of cynic, optimist, grumpy sunshine dynamic is sweet, and I like that she, like, softens up to him, and I just think they're cute. Yeah. And that's not just because I like Cillian Murphy. So, just saying. But yeah, so they're sharing a drink. It's nighttime. Jim's having some nightmares. Frank wakes him up from the nightmares, and then it's next morning. It's time to keep going.
I think we need to dive into what the nightmares are, though, because it's a little bit of like for the audience, it's oh shit, are we gonna get into this? Mm-hmm. So, one, in the nightmare, there's like this wide shot of sheep, like, running. I guess those are actual sheep. Oh. Yeah. Not CGI. Like, because they made a joke about it on the director's commentary of, like, no sheep were injured here. We just started clapping and yelling at them. I was like, what?
Well, they're in England.
Like,
there's lots of sheep around.
I'm
sure there's a farmer that was like, yeah, you can borrow my sheep.
Yeah. So,
I think in Scotland there's, like, more sheep than people.
I think I have heard that.
Yeah.
So that's his first dream, is, like, the sheep are running. Jim, of course, is standing and screaming hello, because what else does Jim do? Then scream hello into the abyss. So, and then that's when he gets woken up, and Frank's like, you're having a bad dream. Like, and I also thought about the fact of, like, the liability of trying to sleep outside, and if you do have a bad nightmare and start, like, making noise,
you're fucked.
Fucking infected are gonna find you. That's a worst case scenario.
It is. And then also, after he wakes up, like, Jim's, like, still half asleep, but he goes, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's so sad.
I missed
his dad's dead.
Yeah, I missed the overarching theme of, like, Jim trying to find a surrogate father in this film, because they talked about it a lot in the commentary, like, referring to Frank and the military guy, the head military guy we see at the end, kind of being a surrogate father to him, and the way they interact back and forth.
Makes me think of, like, what, like, Jim's, like, life before, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, like, you're pulling before problems into the now problems, which is inevitable for people, I think, because we
love
are
to carry that trauma.
Yeah, we are a product of our history. And yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. His second nightmare is terrifying, because you think that he's been left.
Yes.
So he, like, kind of wakes up in a panic.
Yeah.
He's alone, which, as a viewer, I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Because again, going back to, do we trust Frank or not?
Yeah,
I was like,
that's true.
did they just, like, pack up? But then it's like, realistically, Selena probably wouldn't leave Sweet Baby Jim. But anyway, so
Sweet Baby Jim.
You get a flash of, like, has he been left? And then he wakes up again. And then they have him wake up, and he is alone, but then immediately the car comes, like, turning around, and they're like, come on, you slept in! And they have already packed up, and then they're just getting back on the road.
He must have been really asleep, because I can't imagine it was a quiet endeavor to pack up the entire camp while he was sleeping.
He took a Valium. He was
that's true.
The fuck out.
That's a good point.
I do like that. So basically, all of them are struggling to sleep, but Selena's knocked the fuck out.
Yes.
So they kind of wake Selena up. Selena's like, I took 2 Valium. Like, what do you want? Like, that is incredible.
It is good. But yeah, it definitely is still kind of following this beat of, like, lighthearted scene. There's, like, more in the middle of the movie. There's more like, kind of, like, establishing these, like, family bonds and stuff, and then just, something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah. So we get back on the road, and you kind of see off in the distance, like, again, kind of grainy, like, it's kind of hard to make out, but there's like the city in the distance is basically burning, and they're like, oh, is that, like, that's Manchester, like, what's happening? And they're like, well, it's on fire, and there are no fire brigades to put it out. So they kind of keep rolling. They end up at the 42nd blockade finally. we'll call it a makeshift military base.
Yeah.
It ends up being what looks like a palace.
Yeah, like some kind of manor or something.
But this is like kind of the first step to getting there, because you're not there yet. You're in like the entryway, if you will.
Like it's like a blockade.
Yeah, and there are like abandoned military vehicles, and you can tell kind of immediately, like, Frank gets out and is like kind of flustered because there's nobody around, and he's like, someone has to be around here. And Selena's like, no, probably not. Like, we should just get going. So
he's like, go where? What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And like his plan fell apart, right?
Yeah.
And Selena's like, no plan, just stay alive. But he's like so flustered by the idea because he probably hasn't left his apartment, right? He was really banking on this. And then this is when you kind of see this interesting display of like Frank losing his temper and like becoming really angry, right? And like he like snaps at everybody, he yells, definitely does like kind of have a bit of a temper tantrum and like stalks off. I just think like the timing of that is really interesting. While he's like amped up and like furious, he encounters a crow that's eating a body on top of a gate, and he's like angry at this crow, right? And he goes and he kicks at the fence, and then a drop of blood falls from the body into his eye.
Insane.
And then
insane,
yeah. And then he's rage. But I think like the timing of that, of like him being amped up and kind of full of this anger and then infected with rage, but he fights it a little bit, which I think, like, because usually it can happen in like the blink of an eye, right? But he fights it long enough to like turn to Hannah, and Hannah's coming over to see what's wrong as he's like rubbing his eye, apologize, say he loves her, and then can succumb to rage, which I thought was just like interesting that he was given that space to be able to like apologize and like also like declare his love before he turned into something that he wasn't,
when everyone else has turned in 0.2 seconds.
Exactly. I think that was I'm glad he was given that, because he was the dad, you know, he was the father figure.
It also just like bears the question of like, if you were in this zombie apocalypse, I feel as if if I was leaving the house, I would either have a gas mask on or some sort of like mask and goggles.
Yeah,
because you're not getting blood in my orifices. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Literally, like, to me, that's one of the most insane clips in a zombie film. Like a single drop of blood from this fucking crow, square in the eyeball.
Yeah, that's bad. It's bad luck.
Awful.
Bad
so,
luck.
Anyway, he turns. Selena has Hannah, is screaming at our sweet baby Jim, you have to kill him, you have to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Jim is paralyzed with fear and not knowing what to do. And in the meantime, 2 army guys pop up out of nowhere and shoot Jim. Or shoot Frank.
Yeah,
take him
shoot
down.
Frank. A lot. They shoot him several times.
No room for, is he gonna make it?
Yeah, and they were just hanging out there, those soldiers, like they were like calling for people. They were looking around, and then they just pop up. I don't know, that's kind of suspicious.
I think it's typical zombie apocalypse lore. Anytime you have newcomers, you're thinking, what's your vibe?
Yeah,
what's your
that's
angle?
true.
Why
But then
are you here?
Also knowing kind of the ulterior motives of the people, there was an extra man there, and
True.
I just wonder if maybe they were waiting around to see if something would happen before they did anything, so maybe they'd have an excuse to kill Frank.
That is fair. That's also a fair argument.
Yep. Anyway, Frank's dead. They scoop up the other 3 and take them to their base. And we kind of slip into Act 3, the final act.
So, I hate this fact, but I feel obligated to share it. As we're pulling up to the base, 2 army people open the gates for us. One is black. That black actor is the same actor that plays the chained up.
Oh, weird.
And they commented on, again, it was something about a change in the script. And that he just ended up playing the chained up military zombie. and they just hoped no one would notice that it's the same guy. And I was like,
that's kind of shit.
I kind of hate that you took the one black male actor that you got for this and had him play the 2 black male roles that you had.
Yeah,
I hate that.
I also hate that. It's pretty shit. Would they have done that with a white actor? Probably not. Also, the fact that the suffering, alive, chained up character is a black man is pretty fucked up.
The question, though, they say that chained up zombie is the second nod to Romero.
Oh, is it?
And they referenced the film and said it's a reference to Romero and the way they have Bubba chained up. So I'm curious if in Romero's movie the chained up zombie is also black. Not saying that's okay, because you can change the race and still make it a nod.
Yeah, you can still, and maybe you don't even have to make that nod. You can make a different nod, I think, but, whatever. It's 2002.
We're not quite there yet.
But yeah, I did think that was interesting, and I think that's what we were thinking about at the same time before when we were talking about the angry
1,000%.
black woman trope.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just shitty. But yeah, so this is kind of like third act, like suffering and safety. I titled it, where it's like you meet others and things start to go wrong because now you're among other, like a larger group, right? And like I feel like sometimes, especially in like apocalypse narratives, like the more people you add, the more complicated things get.
Yeah.
But yeah, these soldiers is kind of just like a big old frat house. They're all kind of idiots.
Which, like, I kind of had the question of, like, are these actually soldiers?
Right.
Or are these guys that just, like, found uniforms dressed up and, like, having a gay old time? Because they're fucking idiots. But
yeah, they are.
Also, I've heard the men in the military act like that sometimes. So.
Exactly. That's kind of also what I've heard. Because I don't know.
Because to be fair, when shit pops off, they do well with their guns. So it's like, they probably are military personnel because they know how to work a gun. And you're only 28 days in, so it's like you wouldn't become
an expert at that immediately. Yeah, but a lot of like weird kind of like hazing things too. They have like one walking around in a pink apron and he's the cook, right? And he's like very like kind of emasculated and like made fun of and just kind of sniveling and pathetic.
Yeah. And which that's what I thought too, but then on the commentary they literally were saying they were having a really tough time with differentiating between the soldiers.
That's fair, because they all did look the same.
And they were like, people already have a hard enough time knowing the names of characters outside of, like, the main characters. Yeah. So he was like, we were trying to find ways to differentiate between these soldiers. Yeah. And he was like, he said, we put a penny on one, which I think is, like, British slang for, like, a bib of some sort.
Yes.
But yeah, like, he's cooking in a maid outfit, and then there's, like, a scene where they're in Frank's car, like, doing donuts outside like idiots. And,
just like I said, a frat house.
We do have a scene between Selena and Jim where Selena kind of breaks down over Hannah's loss of her father.
Yes.
And is like, I just wish that she didn't have to suffer like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they get their first kiss.
Yeah, they do. And it's nice because it was like Jim kisses her first, which I have my problems in, like, scenes where there's a woman in distress and the man thinks that, like, the only, like, now's the time, I'll kiss you, it'll make it better. Yeah. But I do like that she reciprocated, because I think that, like, I found that believable.
Yes.
Like, she's, like, high emotion, high stress. She's already kind of shown initiative before when she kissed him on the cheek, and there's this like kind of softness there, and but then she they kiss a little bit and then she like walks out because she's probably feeling overwhelmed, which is so fair. But yeah, I do like the way that plays out. I will say I have my comments for the second movie about how that same trope is built in a way that makes me see red. So we'll get to that next episode.
I will say there's also a scene between Jim, I just call him the Major, like our main military guy
I can't remember his name.
In charge. And the commentary was really weird because, like, in one breath they were talking about how he's like a father figure to Jim and whatever, and there's, I guess, a scene where like he kind of ruffles Jim's hair as he walks away, which I didn't really even clock or catch.
I didn't clock that either.
And then it's like in the same breath, like 45 seconds later, I believe it was Danny that's like, yeah, there's like a little bit of a homoerotic relationship between Jim and the Major, and I was like, what? I'm sorry.
Did not catch that. And I see gay in everything.
Everything.
So you gotta do better, Danny. Come on.
Yeah. So I was like, you gotta pick a bit and commit to it. You can't give me don't give me father figure and homoerotic, because then we're really going down a different stretch.
We're going down a different rabbit hole that I am not a fan of.
Yeah. But Jim basically just gets toured around the compound, so to speak, and gets explained like we're trying to toe this balance between protecting and also starting to rebuild sort of shit.
Yeah, whatever. A lot of words from a little man.
And in this tour is when we meet our chained up black zombie.
Yes, we do.
And he tries to claim like he got turned 2 days ago. We decided to chain him up so we can learn how long it takes for them to starve.
Yeah. And, like, Jim's, like, horrified by this. He's like, why are you keeping the zombie alive? And I'm like, I also, like, I understand the idea of, like, trying to learn. You know, you're out here by yourself. There's no infrastructure. There's no structure of really any kind. We're trying to figure something out. But also it does just feel, like, cruel.
But it's also, like, the question of, like, what does that knowledge gain you?
Yeah, right? Either they starve or they don't. Just shoot them.
What are you going to do? Now you're just going to try to capture zombies because you know they die in 3 days? Like, what?
Yeah.
That information doesn't gain me anything.
Yeah, that logic doesn't make sense. But, you know, he's like a power-tripping psychopath, so it's fine. Yeah, just really, really regretted the choice to have made the chained-up zombie black. That's just...
hate that.
So many levels of, like, fucked.
And again, it's, like, incredible that, like, not a single person involved in this movie was like,
hey, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe let's think a little bit about this just for a second.
Yeah.
But then we go around and it's dinner time and they're all sitting around the table, and then the Major, like again, like with just like the pomp and circumstance, he comes in his stupid little suit,
like dress blues or whatever they're called.
Yeah, and he like takes off the hat of someone else, and it's like these are like they're trying to like maintain some kind of structure, but in a meaningless. Yeah. Idiotic, toxic way, I think. And then he sits down, he gets all mad because the eggs have gone bad, and then the one soldier who was dressed in the pink apron, like, gets reamed out, and then he, like, looks to Hannah, the youngest.
He's, like, 13.
Yeah, and is like, don't suppose you can cook, can you? And I'm like, of course, he's looking to the only, like, the girl there. I'm like, just shut up. But then we get a kind of really interesting, like, rant from one of the other soldiers who's, like, talking about, like, trying to return to normality, right? Yeah. And he's like, well, like, the Earth went thousands of years without us. Like, if we get wiped out, that's return to normality, right? And then the Major guy, he kind of, like... he's met with kind of like snickering and laughter and like ridicule and stuff, and the Major comes in and he's like, people killing people, that's normal. And I'm like, that's how you do it, right? That's literally like how the military is like brainwashed into being able to do what they do, which I thought was really interesting, that there was one person who was like no about that. And then it's kind of the end of dinner.
Yeah, and then basically in the middle of dinner, we hear a big bang, which is one of the
landmines.
Landmines that they had set up in the field ahead of the entrance going off, meaning there are probably infected that had gotten in. And then everybody gets up and scrambles to go tend to that. So we get a shot of now this men behind guns, zombies running through the field, zombies being blown up.
Just some action shots, you know, at night. And then they're still kind of sticking around there. And then at some point, Jim and Major, whoever, have like a conversation. Also, you'll notice in one shot that the Major took all of Frank's booze. The 4 bottles that Frank took from the grocery store. Oh. He has them all lined up just for himself, and that made me so mad.
I didn't catch that, but you are 100% correct. 100% correct.
Yeah, I put in my notes, I was like, he took Frank's boots, frowny face.
I think Selena just pulls her machete out just to be prepared in
Yeah.
case infected come in. And the men basically just immediately take it from her because you are a woman. Why would you
have a weapon?
Yeah, exactly. And we kind of get the first, like, what are these soldiers trying to get at?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have taken her machete, and then basically the major comes back in and is like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Takes the machete, gives it back to Selena.
Yes.
I think, again, under this farce of he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Which we find out later is not fully correct. But, yeah, and then the major takes Jim for a drink, as you alluded to.
Yes.
And he basically goes, you've survived this long, how many people have you killed? And Jim's like, well, I only killed a zombie boy in the restaurant, basically.
Yeah.
And then we get the really gross discussion where the major admits that he found some of his soldiers suicidal and set this place up as a hope for future and promised them women because women mean a future.
Yeah. So, yeah, he, like, promised him Selena and Hannah, which is what brings me back to, like, the beginning, or not the beginning, but, like, when Frank died, how they're just, like, hanging around, they're like, well, shit, we have a bigger man who, like, clearly has some kind of, like, pull in this group, so we're just gonna see if we can kill him. And then, like, Jim is not super threatening. He's a skinny little dude, you know, sweet baby Jim. And so maybe he's, like, non-threatening enough that it's like, okay, well, we can, if we're keeping up this ruse of not being, like, sexual predators, we can bring him in, and maybe we can convert him.
Yeah, which they do. They try to get at that throughout these conversations of like, you can join us or whatever.
Yeah.
But I will start my rant here where this is where you realize that Act 3 of this movie, the military is actually what we're worried about. We're no longer really focused on the infected.
No.
And you also see that carried into the second film. The third act, we're now trying to escape the military.
Yes.
And not the infected.
Yeah.
And here is where 28 years later missed a beat for me, because for a second I was like, oh, is toxic masculinity from the dad going to be the problem in the third act of 28 years later? Because that's where my feminist brain went.
Yeah, no, and I think maybe it was trying to do that, but then it kind of took this turn into, like, this, okay, so yeah, spoiler, into this, like, coming of age kind of situation, right? And I do think in the third movie that there is a lot to be said about, like, the play between, like, the dad's, like, toxic masculinity versus, like, his relationship with his mom. And I think that was, like, an underlying theme. Because I think that, like, Spike is, like, trying to undermine that by taking care of his mom in the way that he didn't see his dad doing that. But there is, like, I think there still is, like, that kind of military theme, because there is no military anymore.
I know. I'm just saying, and I don't want to fully spoil it, but we'll say in 28 years later, they run with the theme of the mom plot line, where I was hoping it was, like, it is an underlying theme, but I wanted
more
dad to be at the forefront of the fucking issue we were having.
Where
at one point, it definitely
diverges.
Which I was like, well, drop the ball there in my eyes, but still ended up okay.
I can definitely
because it would go with the military theme.
It would, like, and it would go with the whole, like, the hype that was drawn around it with the boots thing, which is very much about military madness and stuff. But so it's there. Maybe we'll see more of it later. But yeah, definitely in this movie, definitely kind of plays into like, oh, these are the real bad guys. And you see that in a lot of, like, especially, like, zombie media and stuff.
yeah.
And, like, oh, are the real monsters were us all along.
Yeah.
And that is,
Who
like,
would've
true.
thought?
Yeah, who would have thunk it? I mean, that's, like, the constant, almost exhausting point made by The Walking Dead is that, like, it's like, fight the dead, fear the living. I have a hat that says that. I'm sure I've worn it on this podcast. But, and I do think it's particularly interesting of, like, just, like, the military ism of it. Not just, like, other people, but specifically, like, military and, like, the sense of, like, entitlement and stuff that comes from that, of, like, we're the state, we're going to restore order, but we're going to do it by our terms. It's not a democratic thing. We're not taking suggestions here.
Next episode with 28 Weeks Later, we're going to get deep into that fucking conversation.
For sure.
So back to problematic military. So basically after, obviously, sweet baby Jim hears that they want the women, panics, tries to grab Selena and Hannah and runs out, and then obviously immediately is decked by one of the military personnel, knocked out. They've got their guns drawn on him, on all of them really, obviously the two women and him.
And then, well, the guy at the table from the dinner also turned his guns back on the other soldiers and is like, we can't be doing this. And then both him and Jim are kind of thrown in an impromptu prison.
Yes,
essentially.
I completely forgot to even include that. But and the major even says, like, Jim, you can stay or go, but, like, we can't let the women go.
Yeah. Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Very.
So, yes, so they both get locked up, Jim and the one guy that has kind of been trying to stand up and being like, what the fuck are we doing here? And they are tied to some radiators. They're then taken out at gunpoint, walked into the forest, and
to a body pit.
Yeah. And you're thinking,
how many times have they done this?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of awful.
Which I did appreciate in the director's commentary. The amount of times Alex Garland kind of tried to allude to, like, how much he hates his own writing. So he talks about, like, so the young actress, Hannah, got a lot of flack for, like, her delivery of some of her lines, which I'm like, she's a 13-year-old girl. Way to be a fucking dick.
Yeah.
But Alex even, like, makes comments on, like, I think it was the balcony scene. He was like, these lines for Hannah are fucking awful. I did her no favors. And I was like, Jesus. But then the scene with the body pit, he's like, here's a really good example of how to write yourself into a corner, because you have walked your main character to the forest, put him over a body pit, and now you have to figure out, are you going to kill him, or how is he going to get out of this?
How is he gonna get out of? Well, that's probably what the other guy was there for, because, like, he freaks out, they shoot him, and then that's when Jim has a chance to get away. So I think the writing makes sense. Alex, don't be so mean to yourself.
They figured it out. But then we kind of get a cut between the two scenarios, because as Jim and the soldier are, like, locked up and then walked out into the forest, I think maybe right prior to that, we see Selena and Hannah with the soldiers, or vice versa. I forget the order. Doesn't fucking matter. Yep. Anyway, so Selena, Hannah, a group of soldiers are in a room, and you're thinking, is this going to happen now?
Yeah.
Is this going to happen later? They try to allude to the girls need to get dressed up, and they've stripped Selena's shirt off. She's in her bra. I guess you could say she uses her sexuality and femininity to try to manipulate this guy, because she runs towards him, kisses him, and says, can you leave the room so we can get dressed? Changed?
Yeah, it's just polite.
Yeah, so which works because men think with their dick, and the soldiers do leave, and what Selena actually wanted to do was medicate Hannah for the impending sexual assault she's going to get.
Yeah.
Which, this one in the director's commentary too, I kind of was like, ugh. So they made two comments of, one, they had debated making it something harder than Valium. Like shooting up, like, hard drugs.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Obviously didn't go that route, which I was like,
probably better. Makes more sense.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a lot of time to be shooting up like heroin
Also
or something.
And then I guess in one iteration they were gonna take it a little farther with Selena in that shot. And
I'm glad that they didn't.
Exactly. And they even said they had a test screening with a very small group, and the two women in the test screening just got up and walked out during it.
Yeah.
Because
you don't need, as we've talked about before, you don't need to be showing that in order to make it horrific.
Which
right?
I did have the thought, I was like, kudos to those women.
Yeah, no, for
Because
sure.
had they just sat there and been uncomfortable, like many of us have in a movie, maybe we would have ended up with that scene, and then we all would have had to hate it and sit through it. So
exactly. No, that is really good, especially of the time, like 2002,
again,
2001. Like,
I'm just like, I think Danny Boyle and like Alex Garland need like better people in their circle.
Yeah.
For like fucking feedback on some of this stuff.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think they're learning though. I was reading something about how Danny Boyle would not have made Slumdog Millionaire now. Because it is like inherently like appropriative and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, you're learning. It's taken a couple decades, but we're getting there.
I guess we're headed in the right direction.
Some progress is better than none, I guess.
But yeah, and then we have the disgusting comment where the soldier tells Selena she's gonna make her squeal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're to the forest, and the way our sweet baby Jim gets out of this is basically the soldier. Well, so there's a tiff between the two soldiers that have walked them out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's basically one in the front and one in the back, and the one in the back shoots past the soldier to kill the soldier that is in with Jim.
Yeah.
And that starts them fighting.
Yeah.
And
Because he wanted to stab him a little bit and like
torture him.
Yeah,
basically.
torture him. Because he was like, "You're a traitor."
Yeah, and in that tiff, sweet baby Jim is intelligent enough. Well, they turn around and he's gone. So they think, shit, we have to go find him. When actually he has dove face first into the body pit.
Yes.
And then very smart. Not sure that would have been my first thought.
Yeah, probably not mine either. But
yeah.
Backwards, like hindsight 2020, right? I'd be like, yeah, that's
now that I have that.
There we go.
It will be my first thought.
Yeah.
But had I not seen someone else do it first, I probably wouldn't have thought to do it.
Yeah. No.
So they run off after him. Then he gets up, tries to run off. They're going through the woods. He makes it over a wall, allegedly, gets snagged in the barbed wire and loses his shirt because his shirt's still up on the barbed wire.
With his hands still bound, which is an interesting choice. But you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Not trying to be pedantic, but I did. When I was watching that a couple weeks ago with my friend, he was like, "How is his hands still bound?" And I'm like, "Don't think about it too hard. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine."
Yeah.
There's like a moment I had in that in 28 Years Later, because in 28 Years Later they're all like about like bows and arrows and stuff, and the dad gives the son a bow, and the boy fucking dry pulls that, and you're not supposed to do that.
Oh.
If you are at all familiar with archery, even a little bit, you do not pull the string back if there's not an arrow in it. That's bad. Because you could really...
That grandpa figure even told him, he was like, try it out.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Don't do that. If you're at all interested in archery, don't dry pull your string. Like, you're just going to hurt yourself.
So it's just the risk of, if you were to let go, you're going to like your hand up.
You're gonna snap something, and it's like a similar thing of like, just don't fuck around with a gun, you know, like just don't do it unless you're serious. So
There's your fun fact of the day.
yeah, it's just those little like kind of like, it's not that big of a deal, but it's like one of those little things that just bugs me. But yeah, his hands are still bound, but he's running around. Also, I like that it's raining. Oh, it's not raining yet.
Not yet.
We're
We're almost there.
Yeah, we're getting to the rain.
So now, and again, we're kind of cutting back and forth, and I kind of lost track of the order of this, but I will say at one point with Selena and Hannah, as she's trying to give the pills, soldier runs in.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, there's the
She's like,
pills.
I'm trying to medicate her, obviously, because you're about to assault a 13-year-old because you're a pig.
Yeah, yeah.
Which She successfully gives her some, though, because Hannah is high for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, she's just, like, floating.
I don't feel anything.
She's like, this is really working.
Yeah, this feels nice.
Yeah.
And then out in the forest, Jim does fall at one point, looks up, and we get a plane.
Yeah.
So it's the knowledge of...
There's something out there.
People are existing because because it looks like a commercial plane. It doesn't look like anything crazy.
Yeah. So, fun fact, I was reading about, like, the cameras and stuff, and I guess Danny Boyle, after shooting, like, needed to get a shot of an airplane, and he took the camera, like, home and was, like, in his backyard for, like, hours trying to get a shot of an airplane. So that's from Danny Boyle's backyard, which
Literally,
I think is so funny.
In the commentary, he's like, we really wanted to get a shot of an airplane, but we just, like, obviously didn't have, like, the budget for it. But he goes, but planes fly over my flat all the time, so I just, like, lay down in my backyard. I was like, that is incredible.
It is really good.
Okay. So then we're back. So after we have that, we're back with Selena and Hannah, and then we hear, like, an alarm going off. So that tells us Jim has arrived in some capacity.
He's doing something. He's
Yeah.
being sneaky.
And now it's raining.
Yes.
So when they drive out to... It looks like we're back at, like, the front barricade because they had to drive. It is pouring down rain. And it becomes this little bit of, like, a cat and mouse game. There are two soldiers that have gone out to try to find Jim.
Well, it's the major and then also another random soldier. Yeah.
I did really like the scene. We get a scene where... Because you're kind of tracking... in and out of in between the military vehicles, and you're focused on the soldier, and then you pan behind and you get a shot of Jim, but he looks like an infected because he's shirtless, kind of sunken in, soaking wet, and he's kind of just hiding. So I thought that was a really good touch.
Yeah, I and that plays into it later. That we'll talk about that last scene with Jim and Selena. But yeah, so he's running around. He kills one of the other soldiers.
Which apparently, when he kills the soldier, because the soldier, like, goes up a set of stairs kind of thing, and Jim just clocks him, that's apparently supposed to be a nod to Alien.
Oh, interesting.
Because apparently it's from the scene in Alien where they go through the hatch looking for the cat. I didn't connect that. Okay. I didn't catch that.
Did not connect that at all, but that's neat.
They just...
Good little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Paying respects to the form. Yeah, and then the major finds the body of the other soldier and is, like, freaking out, kind of. Tries to start the car to get back to the compound, can't do it, has to run through the woods. So there's a lot of running through the woods, and then again, it's kind of like jump cut back and forth between the woods and the manor, because at the manor, the Selena and Hannah are, like, dressed up now. Hannah's stoned. They're waiting to see what's happening, and then, like, Hannah in her stonedness is like, you're gonna die. Yeah, which is like
creepy kid.
Standard creepy kid fashion. I do love that.
When the major is out in the woods, we get a few infected.
Yes, that's why he starts running. I think.
Yeah, which he downs a couple and then sets off running. Which there was a really interesting comment from, I think it was Danny on the commentary, which I, like, kind of laughed at because I was like, boy, we are not with Ryan Coogler here on this one. He tried to explain how they shot the zombies, but he even said, he was like, I don't really, like, fully understand, and I was like, But he alluded to, because, like, you get these really choppy frames in this one, and obviously they were using, like, a basic digital camera, and he's like, you know, you can go in and change the frame setting, and then he, like, talked himself through it and didn't explain it, but my assumption is, because he was saying how you can change the frame setting and take it up to 60, he tried to say, like, 3,000 or 6,000, which I don't even know if that's real, because I don't know, but, like,
no idea.
So, for example, 4K is 60 frames per second, like, that's kind of, like, supposed to get you super crisp, super clear. I think typical film is 24, I want to say.
Okay.
I'm assuming what he's saying is they dropped below 24 because that's gonna lessen your frames per second, so it's gonna jump more, right? So that was my guess.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to explain it, but I was like, if you've changed the frame setting, you couldn't have sharpened it to get jumpier. So I think they just dropped it like lower.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of adds to the whole scrappy aesthetic of it.
So not only did they use a digital camera, they did change their settings, though.
I would love to see this on VHS, I think. Because I have it on, like, just a regular DVD, like, not Blu-ray or anything, because I don't think it would do well on Blu-ray. But, like, watching this, I think it is, like, meant to be watched on, like, a VHS. I think that'd be fun.
It would be fun. On your DVD, was it cropped, like I asked you?
No. It was, like,
it was a bootleg version.
Yeah, yeah,
so
I think it did.
I got my hands on a 2-pack 28 days later and 28 weeks later. I think they're DVDs. I don't think
cropped on the sides.
Yeah,
no,
so it's
mine was like kind of widescreen, but
this way. And I was like, oh, I'm not watching this, so I have a bootleg version. But whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like, I wonder if they like cropped it off of a TV or something. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh yeah, that'd be kind of funny. Actually.
Anyway, moving on. So so Hannah's like, you're all gonna die.
And then we're kind of cutting back to Jim. He, like, comes over the wall, and he's kind of above the little courtyard where they have the chained-up zombie.
Yes. A little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah, yeah. And he shoots the chain, and then, like, slips back into the shadows. Yeah. He's very much, like, sneaky, you know, doing a lot of stuff that he was not doing in the beginning of the movie, right? And he's going to battle for these two, like, for Hannah and Selena, which I love.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting because, like I said in the third act, the military is the problem, and as Jim is kind of sneaking and weaving his way through, like, he's using the infected for his benefit.
For sure.
Because the first thing, when he lets that guy free, you actually get the cutscene then when Hannah goes, like, you're going to be next, or whatever, you're going to die. Then that zombie comes busting through the window to get one of the soldiers that are guarding them.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely does use the infected. So again, it spreads so fast. Once there's one infected, everybody ends up getting infected. Yeah. So a lot of the soldiers end up going down. They're kind of taking each other out. Yeah. At this point. Yeah. And then
it's just like this montage. I lost track of order here, but I know
I did too.
At one point we have a scene in the kitchen area where, like, one of the soldiers is clearly hiding while the other ones that have been... Because it's also like a domino effect, right? You're gaining more infected as this goes on.
As the soldiers fall. One of them grabs, like, Selena and Hannah. Hannah kind of breaks free and just floats off down a hallway. Selena's, like, screaming for her.
In the commentary, they tried to say that was a bit Alice in Wonderland.
Okay,
right?
I could see that. I could see that it was trying to reference something. I just wasn't sure what. Yeah. Maybe if it had been a blue dress instead of a red dress. My tiny little brain could have put it together. Yeah. But, so Hannah kind of goes off. Selena's, like, dragged into a room, and, just, like, lots of jumping, lots of cuts of, like, Jim running around, more infected running around. Jim goes into a room. There's a soldier hiding there. Yes. Jim had barricaded the door, and then infected busts in, Jim goes out the window, and the other soldier gets infected too. And then he kind of finds Selena and the soldier who's, like, holding her. Yeah. And, like, climbs in through the attic. Yeah. Jumps through the attic, is now in there, and, like, again, it's all choppy and stuff, and all this stuff is happening. Selena doesn't know what's going on. Yeah. He just knows that this Jim figure rushes this guy and just beats the shit out of him. Yeah. Puts him on the ground.
Bashes his head in.
And then sticks his thumbs in his eyes, which is, like, this is, like, probably the most graphic scene of the movie. I can't think of, like...
Because you fully see it.
Yeah, you see the thumbs in the eyeballs, and you know how I am about eyeball stuff. But I'm like,
Yeah, because all this zombie shit's very cut in, like, what am I seeing? But that one is...
Yeah,
we get a very good... Clear.
Which I think is really interesting that they highlighted this like kind of like justified violence, right? Like it's like we're going to show this.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that they did because like they were gonna be rapists.
Yeah.
So
and they deserved it.
Yeah, they deserved it. And then so Jim, you know, covered in blood, gets up and like Selena found her machete, which is great. She picks up her machete. Jim's just like standing there kind of wordless. And so naturally, he's slinking around, running around, being violent and stuff. Like, you're going to think he's infected.
Yeah.
And, like, she goes up and then hesitates.
Yeah.
And then I love this line so much. He's like, that was longer than a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like, for her to, like, try and kill him.
And again, such trust from a sweet baby Jim.
Yeah, really,
because you watched Selena hack Mark to pieces.
To bits. Without hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
because he doesn't even flinch to try to catch the machete.
No, he doesn't. He just lets it happen, and she stops herself, and then she's like, "Oh my God, it's Jim." And I just,
it is good. Before this, we do get our cut of Hannah hiding.
Yes, behind the mirror.
Yeah, there's a scene where she has ran into a bathroom. The logistics of this one again, because I'm pretty positive it's one of those mirrors that you can like
spin.
Yeah, like rotate.
I don't know what was going on there.
I know that she's a 13-year-old girl, but she has now perfectly held herself, pulled her feet up, so they can't see underneath.
On, like, a ledge where your fingertip, like, with, like, rock climber fingertips to hold and pull herself up.
And high on Valium.
Yeah.
And we get this very tense scene because, again, one of the infected runs in. Because there is still a human in there, he kind of pauses and looks at the mirror. Mm-hmm. Where really it's like he's kind of just checking his own reflection, but then he thankfully runs out.
Yeah.
So that's where Hannah's at. So now we're back with Selena and Jim. That is not the order of that, but we forgot to mention the Hannah piece. And so then they kiss.
Mm-hmm. And then Hannah, like, comes in and, like, whacks Jim over the head or something, and she's like... Just like, what did she say? She's like,
I thought he was biting you.
It's like I was kissing her, and I was like, that was cute. Yeah. I did enjoy that, and I just like that whole scene where she just like stops. That was like, see, I do like that love story. Yeah. I think it's just good.
Nice.
It's just nice. Yeah. It's just good. I support it. I ship it.
Yeah. And then they run to the cars, and Hannah gets in to drive. Mm-hmm. Why? We don't really know because she's 13.
And high on Valium.
Yes, and high on Valium. So I think if we were trying to escape
because
military people.
Because Jim gets shot and Selena is holding Jim, like trying to stop the bleeding or whatever.
Because the major is in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And basically it's like, you killed my men, I'm going to kill you. Shoots him in the belly.
Yeah.
Sure so here's where we get a lot of... different add-ons, different scenes, depending on what you have watched. So...
right. I was reading about that.
Commentary said, once they get in the car, and then we get, like, a cut of one of the infected in the doorway, just, like, kind of, like, yelling, that was originally where it ended.
Okay. Yep.
In that draft, I guess Fox was like, we're going to find you guys some more money, because you need to give us something at the end.
Wrap it up a little bit.
So... then they drive off, and they have to drive through... first, the back window gets smashed, and they pull the major out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, sorry. First, the infected pulls the major out, does away with him. So now we can get into the car, drive off.
Yep.
Little baby Hannah has to gas it through one of the gates, and then it's kind of like a
slap cut kind of thing.
Yep, to our black screen with the 28 days later, ... So now we're 28 more days later.
And like before that, there's a little bit of like Jim, like a montage of like Jim in the hospital getting kind of in a hospital-like setting where like Selena is like yelling Jim, trying to perform CPR, and then it's like the cut 28 days later and he's waking up in the room.
So in that smash cut, we get Selena doing CPR on Jim, injecting him. We get a flash of the grass field that we end up in, and it actually only says hell.
Yes.
Not hello.
Yeah.
And then Jim wakes up, and he's got a bandage on his belly, and they're in some random house.
Yeah. He looks up, and he's like, not the curtains as well. Because, like, Selena has been taking all the fabric she can to spell out hello on this grass field.
Yeah.
I read that originally, like, before we even got to the Act 3 military thing, that what was supposed to be Act 3 was that Frank gets infected. They take Frank and end up finding the original lab, and are like, they have to replace all of the blood in their body in order to be like, to cure them. And so, like, Jim was gonna sacrifice himself to, like, save Frank. However, Alex and Danny were both like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, they storyboarded that one, but I don't even think they ever shot that.
Yeah, no, they didn't shoot it, but that was like the original script, which, like, I don't think I would have bought. Like, I like
you would have lost me there.
Yeah, I like to suspend my disbelief for, like, the fun of storytelling, like, a fair amount, but even I would have been like, what are we doing? Like, that's just goofy. Like, what are you gonna do? I think they literally said, they're like, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, bleach out all their veins and capillaries? Yeah. Just because they had such an emphasis on how potent the virus was. Yeah. So, I'm glad we didn't go that route, because I do like this ending.
Yes, because she is sewing all of these things. She has sewn her dress into it. And Hannah we see a shot of Hannah, like, outside with some sheets, and then she comes busting in and is like, it's coming. And they come sprinting out of the house with this big, long sheet, and they're clearly trying to set something up in a field, and like a fighter jet comes over the top, which, fun fact, it was cheaper for them to hire an actual fighter plane to fly over than do it CGI.
Really?
Yeah. I forget what country it's from.
Well,
but
2002, that does make sense. Like, CGI was not the high. I mean, we had, Star Wars, and that CGI was trash. So, like, I don't think like the whole CGI thing was really super up to snuff. It was probably super expensive back then.
Yeah. So, plane flies over. We see that they've spelled out hello. You get this really hopeful ending where Selena's like, do you think they saw us this time?
Yeah.
And then it's just Cillian Murphy, our sweet baby Jim, kind of just staring off into the distance at the fighter plane like they're going to get saved.
Yep, and that's the end of that. That's the end of 28 Days Later.
Did you have a post-credit scene?
No.
Where we saw our alternate ending?
No, I didn't. Not on my DVD thing.
It's so interesting. So I think I was watching my digital version.
Okay.
Since I clearly put in my DVD, and I was like, this is fucking bootleg. Because I own it on digital on Apple TV.
Okay.
Which I have heard they did this in the movie theater the first time it launched. Was they put the alternate ending at the end of the credits.
Okay.
But at that point, like, post-credit scenes weren't like a thing. Like, I feel like Marvel now has made it a thing where people sit and hope for something.
Marvel coded, which I think is, and it also, I think it's good to sit through the credits because you got to see who fucking made that.
On it.
Yeah, exactly.
So the way my played was post-credit, and then it cuts to black, and it in the same setup of our 28 Days Later. On the bottom it says, "What if ... And then
I've never seen this.
And then plays the alternate ending. So it's basically your full scene in the hospital of Selena and Hannah trying to save Jim.
Oh, right.
And Selena's basically like, find me morphine, and she's trying to do CPR, and it's no wonder Jim died, because that's the worst CPR I have ever seen done on anyone. He dies. Hannah asks, well, what are we going to do now? Selena says, we move. And it's just them walking out of the hospital. Doors kind of swing shut, and that's your ending.
Okay. I did read about that, but I have not seen that ending at all. I'm glad Jim lived.
To me, I think it would have been a great punch in the dick to kill him off. Because I think also, at the end of the movie, he's full of rage. Because it feels like he has to kill these awful military guys.
That's true.
So it would have been like, rage still killed him.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from.
That's a good point. I just want him to be happy. But I think that is a good point. I think it would have made sense, and I think it also would have made sense to have just ended with like 2 female characters.
Yeah.
To have like survived all that. But I also like the idea of like him now having to cope with the fact that he went into like a non-infected induced rage, because he almost died.
Yeah.
He's got to work through the fact that he punched out someone's eyes with his thumbs.
Yeah.
Like, that's gonna stick with you, especially if like originally you were like you hadn't killed anyone ever.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, but that's a wrap on 28 Days Later.
That's a wrap. That's a good one. There we go. We got one in the bag.
Yeah.
Good for us.
We normally end our episodes ranting about things we're currently enjoying.
It's true.
Or hating.
Yeah.
We'll give room for hate. We always have room for hate.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you're like vibing with, loving right now?
I have been dissociating for the last 6 months and playing video games.
Yeah.
So I've been playing a lot of Dead by Daylight, which is really fun.
I saw, aren't you guys getting like a 5 Nights at Freddy's drop?
Yeah, so we've got one now, and there's like, and it's fine. I don't like the killer very much. I don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't really care.
It
It's not
like
it's for kids.
Seems like very niche. Like you have to be a fan to
Yeah.
really like get into it.
Yeah, exactly. But I started playing a couple months ago, and I was really, really bad. And then shout out to my friend Mark for sticking with me and helping me practice, because I'm still really bad.
That's why I stopped playing, because I was like, I'm so bad at this, I'm not having a good time.
Yeah, you gotta kind of just let yourself be bad a little bit. The good thing about Dead by Daylight, especially when you're playing on the Switch, is that there's no voice chat, there's no written chat. No one can be mean to me for being terrible, and I am slowly getting better. So that's fun. I've been spending. I play, I think, for a couple hours a night with Mark, like almost every night.
Oh my
so
God, I love that. Oh my God, you're gonna be like incredible in no time then.
I know. Well, because he really carries me. He's like.
We all need that friend.
Yeah. He, like, I'm not even joking. He really carries me, because like I think almost every single match I'm getting hooked first.
He's like, I'm coming, sweetie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, thank you. And then there's only been a couple matches where like he dies before me, and then I'm like, I always panic, because I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this without you. You can't be dead.
My savior.
Yeah, exactly. I am really looking forward to Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yeah,
I think the trailer looked really good, and I'm really excited. And Oscar Isaac is another one of my comfort male actors. And I just think it looks good. It looks pretty like novel faithful, I think. I don't think they're doing a lot of like creative, because like the OG movie is like just completely different than the novel. Like you read the book and you're like, what? How?
You're like, what happened?
What actually happened here? And I think it's interesting, because I think they're playing into the kind of layers of stories in the novel, because you get in the beginning of the book, it's not the creature, it's not Victor Frankenstein, it is like this captain who is writing letters to his sister about his adventures, and then he's like writing to his sister, he's like, oh my God, we found this guy on the ice, like I hope he survives. And then he's writing to his sister about the story that Victor is telling him, and Victor then further tells him the story that the creature told Victor. So it's these layers of story and stuff.
Yeah, that's completely different.
Yeah, which I think is really interesting, and like, you know, it makes it hard to first get into when you're first reading the book, because you're reading this and you're like, what the fuck is this? What are these letters? Because that's not part of the narrative that is commonly depicted in media. Yeah. But I'm excited for that. I'm really bummed that it's only coming out for Netflix. Yeah. There's not going to be a theatrical release.
Which is crazy to me.
Which is also insane. Yeah, which is also crazy to me, and also disappointing, because that means I have to figure out how to get it physical media if it's just dropping on Netflix. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got right now. I read a really sad story about trans people in World War II, so just getting by. No plan, just surviving.
Yes,
True to the Selena way.
Yeah, we're just doing what we can.
Yeah.
I think my biggest, like, thriving moment right now is the discourse around how Hollywood is dying and the film industry is a mess and it's impossible to shoot in LA and everything is so difficult and creatives aren't in charge of decision making and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, honey, horror is thriving right now. So, like, your superhero Hollywood might be dying, but my ass has been in a movie theater since December, it feels like.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because, like, I feel like we're just fucking full throttle with either original IP, which we love, remakes, which we can take or leave, and franchises being carried on. Yeah. And it's like, I'm happy
fun.
as a clam.
Me too. And I think that it's also interesting because, like, if, like, established Hollywood is dying, I think that leaves more room for indies to kind of have their moment. Yeah. And I think that that's probably the case in a lot of ways because, you know, Hollywood is inevitably going to make this move into, like, AI bullshit. Yeah. And I think there is going to be a resistance to that, and there is going to be, like, an indie renaissance. Yeah. Because that's how we resist things, is by fucking doing it ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and that's what everyone keeps saying, is it's like, just go take your iPhone outside and make something, and people are. Yeah. And they're getting millions of views on YouTube. Like, I just saw A24 picked up, Back Rooms, I think it was called. It's going to be directed by a 19-year-old. Yes. Because apparently it's a super successful YouTube series.
It is. If you are not familiar with the Back Rooms, you are not familiar with liminal horror like I am. So, like, that was, like, it started as, like, basically creepypasta, internet lore. Yeah. Like, random pictures of empty spaces, and then all of this lore that was, like, built by the internet around it. So I'll be really interested to see what they do with it. Yeah. I'm not, like, 100% an expert on, like, backroom stuff. I just know that the aesthetic is creepy and fun. Yeah. Also, there's a really interesting graphic novel called 2120 by, I don't know who, but it is, like, a choose your own adventure through the back rooms kind of thing, and by George Weissel, and yeah, it, like, very much takes, like, the kind of weird liminal space existential dread of, like, the backrooms, like, aesthetic and pictures and lore, and makes it like a choose your own adventure graphic novel, which I got stuck with about 50 pages through because there was a math puzzle and I'm really dumb. So, but I recommend, like, grabbing it if you like backroom stuff, because it is, like, really weird, really kind of creepy, kind of like jump scare in a way that's, like, surprising, because, like, how do you do a jump scare with a book? Yeah, fair. But, like, does a really kind of creepy good job.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just kind of thriving on the fact that I feel like horror is taking off, and I think it's a testament to, like, the genre, and I think for those of us who have been at it for decades, you can see the tone in the movies changing, and I think it's like we're moving away from man in a mask hunting teenagers to, like, you have got some shit that is horrifying but does actually have a true message behind it and has, like, true meaning. And I have to also think, it might be resonating with more audiences because everything is horrifying right now. So, like, why not turn to media to
find some comfort?
Kind of, like, soften that blow where it's like, we've said it before, it's like when you're consuming media, you have control over that. If it's too much, you can just turn it off. So,
and then also make sense of things too, because I think that, like, art and movies and books and, like, just any way that you're expressing yourself is a way to make sense of the experience of being alive and the things that are happening that are outside of our control. And if we can write a story about it, like, that gives us control, but it also gives us the tool to, like, process and reflect and everything like that. Yeah, I love art, I love media, I think it's the point, and I'm trying to reconnect with that a little bit, because kind of lost my way there.
It's okay. You'll make your way back.
I know.
In the meantime, you can just sit on this podcast and talk about it.
Yay. Excellent.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you next episode for 28 weeks later.
got a lot to say about that one.
It's gonna be a good one.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.